think. Yeah. على بركة الله. بسم الله. يلا.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Sunday, the 5th of July, 2026. We are on our monthly Q&A. Format is question and answers, later on followed by a Palestine update. What we tend to do with the questions, we do prefer people asking questions on the mic so we can get dialogue going, but we have had a number of questions submitted beforehand, which we'll attempt to go through, inshallah. Just a brief correction from last week. I mentioned in my monologue about sovereignty being with the Ummah. That is a mistake. It should be authority is with the Ummah. Made a mistake there. So
but sometimes people understand sovereignty as also authority. They don't have, but it's better to have sharp terms.
So just to make the distinction that the Ummah is the one who grants the authority, in contradistinction to the lies by the Munafiqeen and their allies, that somehow this leadership is a matter which is decided based on power, based on how you feel, based on hereditary monarchy, as if our companions, they want to tell us about Sunnah, they want to tell us about the Salaf, while ignoring the actual Salaf who were resolute when it came to having Shura and having rule by consent, something which is of such importance, yet they gloss over it, while they fixate on small ritual acts, whether it's ibadah, whether it's istinja, whether it's miswak, or whether it's how many nafils to do. Yet they ignore the thing that has resulted in the humiliation of the ummah and mass shedding of blood. So just to, again, they are secular. They are secularists.
And lying of the kuffar are even worse. That's related to the curse and condemnation of Bani Israel in the tongue of Dawood and Isa ibn Maryam.
Okay, so inshallah, question and answers our 31st dedicated session, and I will read out some questions, and as always, feel free to raise your hand so we can entertain your direct inquiry. Okay, so actually, Sheikh, before I proceed, are you familiar with Sheikh Salman Nadwi?
Oh yeah, I made in the Khamisiyya in Arabic, what they call it, announcement, and prayed for him at the beginning, at the end, before closing.
Can we do something for a eulogy for the Sheikh in English, inshallah?
Let the Shabab who knows India better compile something, and we read it and comment on it casually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
what did you mention in the Arabic broadcast? What did you mention?
I met him here in London. I know who he is. His grandfather is Sheikh Abu Hassan Nadawi, the internationally famous now. And few episodes between me and Sheikh Abu Hassan Nadawi through some Pakistani brothers here and so on. So things more just more or less lively memory, and that he is really the leader of the scholarship in India and Pakistan. Unfortunately, but Pakistan, Bangladesh should have taken the leadership, but nobody is well articulated and coming forth like Sheikh Salman Nadwi, rahmatullah alayhi. But let someone who is more familiar with that.
That's everyone out there. And my Urdu is laughable.
The Shabab should get, especially the one from India subcontinent, should become more active, more creative, more digging things and bringing it.
I can't even get people who live in my hometown to be active.
No, but put it into enterprise.
No one's going to do anything.
Get a bit moving. There's an occasion.
New blood is needed. New blood, don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the first question then. In relation to the preservation of the Quran, somebody in one of the chat discussions, somebody was saying, I think that verse only promises the preservation of Quran. The language is not included in that promise because it is not sent down like the Quran is, as Allah says. We have sent down the zikr and we shall protect it. Alif Lam Ra, these are the signs of the book and a manifest Quran. Much will all the faithless wish that they had been Muslims, leave them to eat and enjoy and to be diverted by longing. Soon they will know we did not destroy any town but that it had a known term. No nation can advance its time, nor can it defer it. They said, O to whom the reminder has been sent down, you are indeed crazy. Why do you not bring us the angels? Should you be truthful? We do not send the angels except with due reason. and then they will not be granted any respite. Indeed, we have sent down the reminder, and indeed we will preserve it. So basically, the line of inquiry here is that the language, how do you extrapolate? How have you come to the conclusion the language is part of the protected zikr?
By necessity, because dhikr is in the language. So it doesn't make any sense to protect it if the language is lost. The necessary language to answer the dhikr. That's by necessity of reason. How could you conclude that?
Necessity of reason, then, yeah, because otherwise,
if the language is lost such a way you cannot understand it, the structure of the basic structure of the language, the issues of the meaning of certain words, at least the Quran uses a limited one, and the Prophet uses extra ones. We'll come to the Prophet later. A limited one within maybe all the total of 10,000 words. The Arabic language have hundreds of thousands of words. The rest may be protected, not is irrelevant. But these and the basic words like say, go, run, all these things must be protected. By necessity, we see it by necessity. The same meaning, go and say, this man says something, the word say means the same thing for us now, the same way that when the Quran came down. And the Quran said, Qul huwa Allah ahad, say Allah ahad, announce that and pronounce it with your tongue. And that's kept in the language until now everyone uses it this way, etc., etc.
I mean, it could be argued. I mean, ultimately, the argument is this: if we are supposed to have hujjah established on us, there will be no hujjah if the word itself.
If it is lost, if we lose the meaning of one word completely, is not protected anywhere, either by tawatur, like what we know about most words, and few words which may be rare, but they're protected by the Quran itself internally, like dhikr, what dhikr means, the various 6 meanings we share. They are all listed in the Quran, and from the context you can see that. If that's then it is Chinese, nobody can understand it. So that's by necessity of reason. Yeah, we have Quran is coming to address people who have reason. Yeah.
Otherwise, because ultimately
it's not addressing animals because they are not. They will not be counted for that Yawm al-Qiyamah. So they don't need to understand. For them, they cannot understand most of it anyway. They may feel it. Some people told me that they read Quran to their cats and so on. The cats show really enjoyment and things like that. That's fine. I'm not denying that. But it's not addressed to them. And doesn't mean that they understand the layers of meaning there. Okay? That's by necessity of reason.
Also, I mean, any injunction, if it's not clear, then there's no, then the hujjah is not established, in which case.
But the basic meaning of the language is there by necessity, which means the hujjah is established. Yeah.
In the absence of that, then how can you be held accountable if you don't know what's being said?
It doesn't make any sense. Just take it at face value, simple. Or to conclude, the language is protected. The basic language, which is necessary to the Quran and Sunnah, which is the basic ruling of qawaid, even if it's not articulated as qawaid, as rules, that's articulated later. Structural research, and research worked on that. But they do not only that, they were making trips inside the Arabian desert, collecting what the Bedouins are saying, asking them what the meaning is, and insisting these people should be really genuinely taking it from their parents and grandparents, not contaminated with anything surrounding Arab Peninsula. So they don't take from Bedouins coming to Basra until they test them that they were not contaminated with the civilization of Basra in the 2nd century, because the language started being corrupted there. They test the people. Like, for example, the following story. Let's give an example. That's by necessity of reason. This is how history works. Otherwise, you cannot think and consider anything. We will look at the Quran and say, this seems to be a foreign language. You don't know what's it, what the meaning of this word. No, we know every meaning of that word. So that's what the disconnected letters, people still argue what's their meaning, and they don't contain any hukum, they don't contain any khabar, and they need to be decoded. Maybe that's for the long haul to prove the revelation of the Quran. We don't know. It can be worked upon that. And some people explain that Taha, for example, meaning "oh man" in Aramaic or Syriac. Maybe not. It's irrelevant. But it's been adopted in Arabic. It's a Taha. That's it. You can have various interpretation, but otherwise, well, everything is there, and they preserved as Taha in the Quran, the written Quran, all the way to the Prophet. That's what we need. And since the meaning is not disclosed to us at that time, because it refers something in the future, maybe someone ingenious will detect something which we did not detect it yet. It's open. But anyway, let's go to this story. And one of the scholars of علم النحو, also he's a ثقة in علم الحديث. Maybe, I don't know, he's another ibn Ismail or one of these big ones, Khalil ibn Ahmad. He say he met one of the Bedouins who come to Basra for buying and selling. He must be from deep Arabia, because the outskirts of Arabia is not regarded as fasih enough to be taken language from them. Nabat and so on, no. It must be from deep Arabia. Preferable deep in Middle Najd and deep in the mountains of Hijaz, essentially around Mecca, north and south of Medina, going all the way the eastwards toward Najd. This is the peak of Fasaha. They take only from that as much as they exclusively, especially in the first and second century. So he said, I met one of them casually, and he has a book in his hand, and say, someone lost this book, it fell in the street, and I thought it's valuable, it should know, because at the time they were writing mostly on parchment, maybe on parchment, looks very valuable, I don't know what's it. And I wanted to give it to you, because you don't know the owner, you cannot announce in the masjid, it does not make any sense. So I brought it to you. So I asked him casually, I will take it only if it's muqayyad. Muqayyad meaning having tashkil, having autographic. And the Bedouin said, I don't know what's muqayyad. I'm not sure if it's muqayyad, chained, or let loose. That's all understanding of word muqayyad. Because the word muqayyad used by the linguists, meaning having tashkil, is not the origin Arabic meaning. This is the created new meaning. And the scholar, this man is still genuine Arab, still a rough, deep desert Arab. We can still take language from him. So if he understood that's muqayyad, I would not take anything from him. That's just a side episode. And there's so many scattered episodes like that. So many scattered episodes like that. That they take only from those Arab who are so, as we say, in their envelope. Sometimes joking story narrated about them, you will not believe it, that someone who living in the world at the time could not understand that. Like, for example, the following nice story. One Bedouin of these who are still in their envelopes was reporting to one of the scholars there. Tell him, I have a strange experience I cannot explain with people of Basra or Kufa. What is this? Explain that to me. Say, what's it? So I saw celebration, seems to be a wedding, and someone told me, come have dinner. So I went in. People are inviting. I don't know if they're Muslim or Kafir. And they gave me something so tasty. I don't know. They gave it a name. Unknown. I have never seen that. It means the faluda. I describe it. It's called faluda. I don't know what's it, but it's one of the most delicious things. And then after that, a group of them was secluded aside. So I joined them. I don't know what's going on. And they turned the drink around us. I don't know what's the drink, but after drinking it, I felt that my head is going through the roof. Clearly, they gave khamr. So there are people who are corrupt and they don't care about that. And not really practicing Muslims. So that was available in Kufa and Basra at that time. And then someone got something like a drum and took it under his arm like a baby. And then when he hit it, it farted with such an enjoyable sound. For him, the sound of the love, he doesn't find a word for it called farted, but it was a very nice sound. That's the description of the Bedouin. So they say, look at this man coming from a deep desert, doesn't know even that would let your head go through the roof must be some kind of intoxicant. And doesn't know what oud is, whether it was not a guitar, what's the name of them which have six?
Lute.
A lute. He doesn't know. He said something like a drum, and he took it like a baby. And he has never seen that before. I'm just saying this episode, and if you count these episodes, all of them are independent. They not made. Most likely, they made us to make jokes about the Bedouins. They have nothing to do with the protection of the language. From the totality of that, you come to a necessary understanding what's going on. And they stopped going to the desert side when they felt that khalas, they cannot be sure about it. That was like mid of the 350. That was the last one. And they mentioned one of the last generations. He's originally from Sindh. He's not an Arab, but he was, I think, taken slave or something in his young years and adopted, fostered and brought up, because there was no formal adoption in Islam, obviously, brought up. and he was living with the camels, avoiding going to the cities and so on. So one linguist was there in the desert, and he met with him, attending to the camels and so far away. This is the double envelope. And then he said, he complained to me, say, these Ajami. He regarded him as non-Ajami. Himself is not Ajami, although he's from Sindh originally. Those Ajami are so numerous, I'm afraid the Arab will disappear under them, and we have no more Arabs. For him, Ajami and Arab is a matter of long tongue, so he's avoiding them like the pest. So we took some, he said, we took some language from him. It's one of the later ones, maybe 3rd century. And the same with one lady deep in the desert, also one of the late ones in the early 4th century, late century. They mentioned certain issues and they asked her about certain seeds and so on. What's the name in Arabic? So he took some seeds which he gave in the reference in his book, gave the name in Persian. Maybe you can check what is the seed. I took some of it and asked it because Persia had many desert areas and they seem to be growing in desert areas. So the man concluded it may be available in Arabia also, but we don't know the name in Arabic. So he went to her and showed her. And she said, thanks a long time. She said, let me remember, because it's not very common seed. And then after a few minutes, she said, now I remember. This is the buhduk. And he wrote it down. That in Persian is called buhduk in Arabic, according to this woman. And this woman is reliable because it's deep in Arabia. So these episodes, all of them give you the picture that this is by necessity of history. You don't need the Quran to tell you that. Okay, that's concerning the Arabic language. I was thinking that he will ask about the Sunnah, how it is protected, and we know how many hadith are fabricated, things like that. That's because, first of all, the Sunnah is dhikr that we have proven, I think, with certitude in the chapter 2 and 3 of the of Book of Tawheed. Read it and convince yourself. But we're there, we mean the Sunnah as it is, as the Prophet pronounced, and if you are in his presence, and his act as you have seen them, not someone reporting to you. Now, obviously, we were not there. We have to rely on the narrations as well. Now, seeing how the narration has been reported and recorded, etc., plenty of things, some of them contradicting each other. So, by necessity of history and reason, it cannot be protected like the way of protection of Quran, word for word, letter for letter. It must be something other. What is this? We have to extract that. Ibn Hazm went to extreme regarding the moment the hadith is established as sahih, then in virtue of the ayah of protection, it is qat'i. And that is the catastrophic mistake, one of the worst mistakes of Ibn Hazm. When I say worst mistakes, the others are doing that, all the fuqaha do that essentially, but not without saying it, the problem is that he claims it is qat'i openly and clearly as a matter of development of rationalization. The others, they treat it as qat'i without saying it publicly. If you force them, they say, no, khabar ahad cannot be qat'i itself. There must be some extra support from outside. But Ibn Hazm say, no, you don't need, just by itself. Not noticing that there are many problems with that. And reality shows that, and that's one source of problems in his fiqh. That's essentially almost the only source in his problem. Concerning Quran, he was quite good in that, but also made blunder in Masala of Naskh. He was very lenient in the Quran, and this is a pattern mistake also. But independent of that, so seeing the historic reality, and if the Sunnah is protected, this means that ultimately the only thing which we can guarantee in that is that no Sunnah, no statement or act of the Prophet, which we need in Deen, not that when he was in battle and so on, he ate potato, or no, there was no potato. He ate pumpkin. It's irrelevant. It's not in Deen. We know the pumpkin is halal, mubah, and there's no. We have reports that he loves pumpkin, and we know, or dodi and things like that. Okay, that he loves it. That's all what it is. Just a piece of historic relevance. Show us his taste in a certain situation. It has no legal implication at all. And shows the story about this pumpkin. Let me say the not pumpkin. It said, what's the dodi, the jana, marrow, and things like that. Anas ibn Malik report that he was he was offered a pot of farid and so on, or some side of cooking or curry, and they say usually the Messenger of Allah is restricting his hand to his side. That's one of the etiquette he taught him. Don't let your hand go to the other side. The pot is for everyone, so you take from your side and start building from there, not the middle like barbarian. So this is a manner which is highly desirable. No, we know from that he ordered that to some people. And he said, I saw that he's stretching his finger a little bit further than usually, trying to get the pieces of the marrow or the doody or something like that. It shows that he loves that, so that he is even going a little bit out of the area usually. He restricts himself to it. He loves this pumpkin. Now, the conclusion there is a historic fact. As I say, Anas Malik said, from that moment, I start loving pumpkin because the Prophet loved this. So show it had a psychological connection and the love of Anas to the Prophet. And obviously, majority of Sahaba have that. The show is only this. This is, you don't need that for your deen. If that has been lost, okay. If it is rejab, alhamdulillah. But what we need for our deen, that's the condition. From sunnah, both statement or acts and so on, it cannot be lost forever, completely. It must be reserved somehow. If it is not in this book, it is in this. If it is not in this narration, this. If this narration is having a shortcoming in describing the act, another will give you a description of the act. And we have practical example for that. I just finished with some Jawab, one of the hadith of Qadar, the famous hadith that some Sahaba were at his door or near to the entrances on the masjid and were arguing. Senior Sahaba, by the way, like the full narration. I compose the full narration. Inshallah, I'll publish it soon. And he went out and he was so outraged about their dispute and threw even dust on them and say this will destroy the ummah. But the very channels of narration to the same Sahabi, one adds more, one reduces more, one look from an angle and so on. If you put them together intelligently, and all them together, it's not at top. If you put them intelligently, you get a picture which is excellent. But you have to do some effort. You can say, oh, this narration of Abu Hazim from Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Jaddi, he says that only. No, because others memorized more from Amr ibn Shu'ayb. It is Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Nabi an Jaddi, Amr Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, and so on. And then you see what was the full picture. He was not angry because they were discussing Qadar. No, he was angry that discussing using the book of Allah to strike an ayah against ayah. That's the reason for anger. تضربون كتاب الله بعضه ببعض. There's not a dispute discussion about Qadar. And then he gave them the rule. The book of Allah has because everyone agrees it's from the book of Allah. If you don't agree, then you study the issue of is it from Allah or not. But if you agree, then it cannot be possible, if it's from the book of Allah, that the ayah are contradicting each other. It's impossible. So if you the premises you have established from Allah, then by necessity you must conclude that they must be somehow harmonious, but it needs some deep thought, especially in issues of Qadar is the most deep and complex issue ever in human history. We know that. So, if you know that it doesn't contradict by necessity and get the common meaning, how to interpret it, then say it, no problem. But if you don't, then say there are some scholars and people of knowledge who can do it. I can't do it. That's the way, not say this contradicts this, that violating the principle you started from it initially. That's from Allah. If you think it's contradictory, then you have to go to check the evidence of prophethood, and that's from Allah. It's another ball game altogether. And then he said, an additional second rule, important rule, and whatever is commanded to be done there, do it. That's the way to deal with it. And whatever is prohibited, avoid it. There's no negotiation at this point. Because what's commanded is very clear. Like, for example, in dispute and Qadar, but the issue قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. It's clearly an injection that you should do good deeds which purify your soul and avoid those deeds which will get your soul down the drain. The issue that how is that synchronized with the divine knowledge, that's a very deep issue. If you don't know how to get it properly, I hope we got it more or less properly, but others did not get it, refer it to the knowledgeable one. But the command here has to be complied with. قد أفلح من زكاها. So do deeds to purify yourself. Independently, how can you combine that with the divine foreknowledge and this freedom of choice? That is an issue. Leave that for, if you don't understand it, leave with someone else. But the command there must be followed. That's the way to go. Because you say you will succeed if you the issue is that free choice or no choice, and it's a very deep, leave that at the side. But that to command is very clear. And the prohibition is clear. Don't do things which will which would stain your soul and let you fail, avoid fail of success. You are commanded to do what I've commanded to do, which will lead to success and so on. How this synchronized with the previous knowledge and writing in eternity, all these things, that's very deep. If you don't know how to put it together, I hope we have put it the best way together, then you are, then you should leave it to the scholar. But commands are clear. Do it. You don't need to ask Allah. Like, for example, when the story mentioned in Bukhari, Ali ibn Abi Talib, he mentioned the context is very clear. They were sitting on a graveside, and then he was digging the earth with something in his heart, and then he lifted his say, none of you is except having a place in Jannah and place in hellfire, and not all, and in hellfire. And explanation in the hadith Abu Hurairah, how they build their place in Jannah, place in hell, is very detailed, but in that's it. And then what the question was there is that should we rely on this is all well known and written. He means written everyone until the moment of death. It may change until the moment of death. And there's nothing in his statement that he says is written in eternity. But because of the problems in their mind, the prison, say, should we not rely on the book, on the writing, and do not do any work? What has to do with what I'm saying to you now? So I said, اعملوا وكل ميسر لما خلق له. اعملوا. Now, how to combine that with freedom or non-freedom and divine dominance, and that's very deep. But that's explained in the Quran. That's understood by Ali ibn Abi Talib. Was not understood by the people around them, even if they are senior Sahaba. Because not all of you are knowledgeable. They're good fighters, they are sincere people, but not necessarily understand that. So their question, they does not understand what's going on. We are on the grave and he's talking about someone who was buried. And everything is written already now, fixed now, no more addition, except for exceptional things that if you have a good son or child who pray for you, that will add to your good deeds. It says it's part of your good deeds, but it continue for you while you are absent. And if you have a sadaqah jariyah, it will continue for you. These are exceptions. Otherwise, everything is sealed. The same with misdeeds. It's closed. Except if you establish a bid'ah and people follow you because of your establishment, then you are guilty partly of their sins also. They have their own sins and they have their sins. That's the only exception because it's your establishing of the deviation. And bid'ah here is more general than especially the main bid'ahs, which if you scan the Quran and Sunnah, are the bid'ah of the rulers. But for your Jami will not tell you. Bid'ah is that niyyah, pronouncing niyyah of salah and such nonsense. The real issue of bid'ah is from rulers. Rulers do this and that. يحدثون البدع. They make invention. They change the law. That's them. And they are guilty of that. And for anyone following themselves, I have the example of Muawiyah. I follow him. Muawiyah has his own condemnation, and the one who follows him has his own sin. And that he has a part of the sin of that written to Muawiyah after he demised. That's the only exception. Otherwise, the book is sealed now. We are on the graveside. He did not start in the masjid talking like that. Huh? It's on the graveside. You should understand from the circumstances going on. But some people do not, are dull. They don't understand, unfortunately. So they asked, should we not rely on the book? As if they think the book is the book written billions of years ago or the foundation. No, that's not the book meant. It's already recorded and sealed with these two exceptions I meant or something like that. So we just answer them. اعملوا فكل ما استطاع خلق له. Because what this one has made for himself and established for himself is already well established by his own doing. And the Quran is very clear in that. Using the language of fortune and mishap. And the Arab use the word bird because they used to throw stone as bird. And if they are right, it's a good omen. To the left, to the bottom. Obviously, there's dances, khurafa. But the word طائر or طير, etc., became used for that. So what the Surah Al-Isra says? كل إنسان أنزلناه طائره في عنقه. We put his tail, his bird, on his neck. Meaning he has his own destiny under his control. He cannot come and say, I didn't have free will. No. It's in your neck. ونخرج له يوم القيامة كتابا يلقاه منشورا, and we'll bring out to him a book which he can read for all his deeds. So he's the one who's made his happiness and his mishaps, because his burden, his neck. He is the maker of his own destiny. Necessarily the future is open. But with death, خلاص, it's sealed and already. That's the hadith about at the graveside. And then, اقرأ كتابك. The ayah continues, the next ayah continues. اقرأ, read your book. كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. You can account yourself by yourself. You did it with complete freedom. Account yourself. That's قطعي. No doubt about that. Another قطعي, we mentioned various, Musa sent to Pharaoh and so on, etc., etc. So that's settled by the Quran. But you need to read the Quran with all ayahs from this side, because the issue of human activity, it's still under absolute divine dominance. But does not mean that you don't have a circle of freedom. You have inside the circle of freedom shows almost looking like a divine freedom, but it's not divine because it's a wide circle outside it. That's it. But in that circle, you are sovereign. Not only have authority, almost sovereign. And this is what people cannot comprehend and slow down. Even many philosophers say, currently, they say our feeling of freedom of choice and so on is a deception. Somehow the food I ate yesterday affected my choice now. Obviously, nobody accepts that. It's nonsensical, because you feel by necessity that you are free and you have making your own choice. I say, no, this is just self-illusion, delusion. You are deluded. I'm just giving you this example to show that this hadith, if you will, you have here the ayah, you have to put them together and put the meaning. And in that hadith, if you get the full narration and analyze it, it tells you clearly that they would have no right to ask, why should not we rely on the book and forsake work? What nonsense is that? So that's the way to go. And even that hadith is various variation of words. Some of them smacks into jabr, into fatalism, and some smacks more towards freedom. So meaning the narrators, some of them have problem understanding and reporting it with the correct wording. So you have to search what seems to be the original wording of the Messenger of Allah, or what is close to it as much as possible. And you have to work that. It's the hard work. Even the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And you have to get supporting evidence from other hadith, not from this one hadith, in the same issue. Hadith of building the house in Jannah continuously, and building a house, or actually digging a deep hole in hellfire continuously until death. With the small exception I mentioned in addition. Otherwise it stops. And what happened to these two houses and places, etc. The two other hadith of importance that most likely you need to put all three to understand the picture correctly, because I said the picture is extremely complex, because we have the absolute divine dominance, no doubt about that, but they have also the absolute assertion that you are responsible for your deed, and you have enough freedom of choice that by Allah's design and insisting on that and making the universe the testing universe because of that, which makes the future is open. It's not known at the beginning what the person will do. Not known to anybody, because it does not exist. It is not being coming in existence yet. It's an unknown by necessity. Allah does not know. Yeah, He knows the probabilities, the various things. Like in the case of Musa. فقول له قولا لينا لعله يذكر ويخشى. Speak to him softly. Maybe he will be reminded and become God-fearing. That's the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And it's impossible for Allah to lie and send Musa and Harun to an impossible mission he knows already that he will not accept. That's not possible. That's attacking the divine in his fundamental attributes of absolute truthness, and that he never lies. Allah is telling you that. So accept it. If you do not know how to construct it rationally, complicated, well, leave that to the philosophers. But must be a fact. And this is a fact, and this is a fact. And when I join everything, يقول ما تشاءون إلا يشاء الله رب العالمين. Your will cannot be concluded except Allah permit you to do your will, whatever you want. We show you that this is the external circle, external infinite circle, and the internal circle. Putting that in your head seems almost impossible, but that's it. And also the necessity of reason dictates that also. But atheists and other naturalists and so on, they run away from that, say, no, this is just delusion. If this is delusion, then nothing can be ascertained. Everything is possible and impossible at the same time. And this is magic universe, magic reality, and this is madness. So the alternative of this is madness. This is rationality, and what's confirmed and synchronized fully with the revelation. That you cannot swallow it and you can imagine because it exceeds your imagination and power of getting things squeezed in your finite mind. That's by necessity because you are finite. You know where you're going to squeeze that there. So accept the one who has that in his present knowledge in eternity, knew that and have that. Accept that one is telling you the truth and take and run with it. I went many examples of the protection of the dhikr and many things like that, but again, you have to get the fundamentals first right. The protection of the Quran is based on two things. The text we have, we can get it back all the way, tawatur and so on, and also physical copies which have been carbon dated, like for example, Birmingham manuscript, and also the Paris manuscript, which seems to be the Birmingham, are a few pages from the same Quran. And there's research on that. I'm still scrutinize it in detail. And we get this range, which makes it impossible to be, it seems to be even before Uthman, but we need more research and better, higher level of testing carbon dating and other ways of dating. But the people in Birmingham and people in Paris, they don't care about that. That should be, Muslims should be doing that. They are happy to get that and then say, stop it, no more. Why are we going to support the Quran? Muslim and Muslim governments, so-called Muslim governments and Muslim institutions should finance that. Because this is, and this is not extremely costly. It's not talking about billions and millions, even less. I researched how much a carbon dating of the standard accuracy, 95% probability for that range. How much is that? It's a couple of $1,000, a few thousand. How much is for the much higher accuracy? There's a high accuracy version of the test, which give you with 98 probability, which is much more, because the moment you come to absolute certainty, it becomes more expensive until it becomes impossible to get there. We know how things work with the probability curve. I don't think the step from 95 to 92, 97 or 98 is just simply proportional. No, it is exponential. And this will squeeze the range and give us a higher probability. We should do that. We don't expect your lenses to do it. Why should we feel blue eyes or black eyes? No. They are happy with that. Actually, they were shocked with that. What initiated the Birmingham is that one lady, she's a very honest Orientalist. She's still living in Berlin, and someone I know her, and I will communicate to her about certain issues and suggestions. And she put pressure on governments and so on, like Saudi Arabia and so on, come and finance that. Shame on you. And it's come from an old just a professor, chair professor in Berlin. They will become live, obviously, hopefully. Anyway, I'm just telling you what's in my mind. I'm plotting for that. This one knows about the Paris manuscript, knows about Birmingham, and all the dating until that time was based on the calligraphy and the type of writing, which is good. It gives you 50 years, something like that, because every generation or two generations, 50, 60 years, the writing changes a little bit. So notice there's some issue there, strange issues with the dating, and there are evidences which are almost irrefutable that these 4 pages in Birmingham are taken from the Paris manuscript. The Paris manuscript is unique, that it's actually written like by a committee or something like that, of 4 or 5, I'm not sure, but 4, because the one writing in Birmingham is the writer number 3. I will check that in more details. And they came to a conclusion, she and other scholars, is that this is written really in the same time, but it seems to be the parchments are of different ages. That's okay, because parchments are kept for long time because very expensive and nobody will waste them. So they kept maybe 10, 5, 10, 15 years, but they will not be kept 100 years. So so there's the discrepancy. And also that seems to be the writer are belonging to various generations, because the one which has the manuscript of Birmingham seems to be writing with a relatively old and primitive Hijaz script. And all the others are with the more so-called the standard Hijaz script, which is a bit later after that, later 30, 40 years. We can explain that. My explanation for that is that this writer is an old man who learned much earlier. So he got used to the old type of script and calligraphy. And he's not very contested of calligraphy, changing his calligraphy to adjust with the time. And the other ones are much younger. This fits with the committees established by Uthman for copying, but just by speculation. So this woman is honest enough. She put pressure on the Birmingham guys to do a carbon dating. And they did the basic one, a couple of thousand, based on the scholarly pressure from that woman, that's respectful, worthy of respect lady, full professor. I don't remember her exact name. The one in Paris, I don't think they did carbon dating yet. They did calligraphy, but they did other important research about the ink, which is can be non-destructively tested, and they show that every one of these writers has his own ink dispenser. The inks vary a little bit. That can all be ascertained now with X-ray and spectral resolution of the ink. I think that it's amazing how much we can say with that, with the calligraphy also. But the professors who did not have this before the Birmingham, they have concluded it must be the third or fourth quarter of the 7th century. 7th century, 600 to 1. So it's still maybe post-Uthman with something like that. But this carbon dating, if it's done consistently and comparing with the very started there with inks plus parchment, that's missing. That must be financed. And the number of pages in Paris are about 70. So we have to get a good number of samples, at least 10, 15 samples. And even each page should be sent to various independent research areas to check it, and so on. And this is a complex process. It must be established by writing agreements between the supporting and the owner of the manuscripts, all of these complicated things, and also financing it. But still, with all these numbers, high accuracy testing, with which 98%, the error is only 2%. It's only 15,000 pounds. It's not hundreds of thousands. So you can do 10, 20 of them easily. For even a rich man, a millionaire can finance that. You don't need government for that. But since we have these dulls, these traitors, and institutions who are dreaming in the ancient centuries, not coming to the modern time and benefit from that, we cannot ascertain more than it is. Maybe according to the carbon dating of the only one page of the Birmingham manuscript, we can ascertain that it is between 586, which is absurd, obviously. That's even before the birth of the Prophet, the parchment skin, and 642. That's a little bit after Uthman. And the center is even before the Prophet was sent. So it is the center point must be shifted, and we have a great accuracy, so we can squeeze it down. So I'm convinced this one is when the Uthmani, or even before the Uthmani, one where the people copied from Hafsa, because there was requirement to the Hafsa book with that. So for the Quran, we have at least until Uthman by parchment, physical reality. No narration, no BS. That's it. And we have from the various narration we get it to Hafsa, as narrated in Bukhari and other places. And there's multiple other, not only that hadith al-Bukhari. We have many other narration mentioning the Mus'haf of Hafsa that happened with it and so on. and all of them independent and related to various issues and so on. So with necessity, we know it must go to Abu Bakr's time. خلاص, we are almost at the Prophet. But we have other narration show that there was even a full mushaf at the Prophet and he gave it to Uthman ibn al-As Thaqafi. So we're done, خلاص. So all of that, this text that we have is necessary with care for Muhammad alayhi salatu. Now connecting it to the heaven or to the devil also, that's another issue. That's the issue of analysis the content, analyze the evidence of the Prophet, and so on. So for the Quran, we don't need to worry very much. The text is from this man. Now we have to indulge in and anyone claiming otherwise, that what we have in our hand is definitely Muhammad ﷺ, and it claims as a Quran that is protected, and we see the protection until then. The ayah of protection that implies more than that, if it's from Allah really, that the whole Quran, nothing is missing and nothing is added to. So anyone claiming that some ayahs have been changed because of it address Ahlul Bayt must be declared to be completely mentally deranged. And if you see these evidence and insist, to be completely declared as a kafir. That's it, simple. Denying the truth of the Quran. Simple, straightforward. That's clear there. Letter for letter, even pronunciation for pronunciation, because we have various readings, but no, the Muslims to be the preferred one, as I will discuss, inshallah, in our writing about Tawheed and Quranic codation. So this preservation of the Quran is of another type than preservation of the Sunnah. Preservation of Arabic language is even prior to the preservation of the Quran, in the sense that it is by necessity of reason. Nowhere there will be a word. The huruf al-muqatta are not words. They are a challenge for the people to come in the future. What does it mean, and so on? And what's the deep meaning of that? And people are wavering until now, not coming to any conclusion, which is irrelevant because there's no ruling there, no issue of aqidah. All what's there, it is in the Quran, and the one who sent it out or one who wrote it put them there, and nobody knows what he intended with. And at face doesn't seem to have any meaning. Fine, regard them as prefixed symbols with certain whatever purpose they deserve. And it's unique. In the Old Testament and New Testament, nothing like that exists. So something unique. Maybe that's the reason for that. Look at this and how it fits and why. What's the relation to the surah? And tell me if you can make sense out of it, except attributing to a divine who kept it until time in the future. Then the future will bring it. Computer maybe, and things may one day come with a nice guess. Yeah, maybe. But the rest, which is you can understand linguistically, all of them are explained by themselves in the common Arabic language, which is known by Tawatur and still used by people until now. And for rare places where the people have changed the use a little bit, we have clearly the tracing in history what was the meaning and the time of revelation, which is the relevant one. And I mentioned many times, if you remember, I mentioned time past few things related to the word nasiha. That's original meaning is sincerity and purity of the heart. Is not advice. The Quran used the word maw'idah. That's maw'idah. Maw'idah is what we call now advice. But because maw'idah is supposed to be out of sincerity and care for the one you are addressing it to it, otherwise it's not really a maw'idah, then it was you have to do maw'idah with sincerity, not lip service. That's it. So it was later, like middle in the time, late in the time after the Khulafa Rashidin, slowly became like, because people approached the rulers at that time and to make an introduction that I'm not offending you and so on. I am sincere, but I want to tell you something. So they conflated it. That's later, starting with Muawiyah. In addressing something higher than you or powerful or a head of state or something, then people thought, I cannot tell him I'm doing wa'af directly to you. No, I am sincere to you and bringing you some point. A diplomatic way, which is not the way really Quran and the Prophet was dealing with it. But people sometimes become weak and so on. But we know what nasiha means. Is protected even from the hadith, by the hadith itself. When you say ad-deen nasiha, religion is, if you try to listen to advice, you will get stuck with the rest of the hadith. So the only interpretation here with nasiha is sincerity, purity of the heart. Say, for whom, Messenger of Allah? Said, for Allah. He don't give advice to Allah in the sense of giving more, obviously. So that usage, later usage is already collapsing. وَلِرَسُولِهِ, you give advice to Messenger of Allah? No. So meaning you are sincere in following him, respecting him, and so on. وَلَئِمَّةِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَعَامَةً, for the leader of the Muslimin, by standing and giving them the best possible advice, not what benefit you, what really benefit them, what you think sincerely is that what Allah is requiring from them, including criticizing a mistake and blunders of them. Otherwise, you are not sincere. You are a sycophant. You are a liar. وَلِعَامَّةٍ, for the common Muslims, all of them. That contains mu'idha, wa'af, and contains also having pure heart to them. You wish them the best. You do everything to protect them. You fight for those who cannot fight. You care for the needy. That's it. So meaning is clear, even protected in the Sunnah. That's one example where the meaning have been shifted a little bit. So the su'al about which mustanad, necessity of reason. Otherwise, we're talking Chinese then. If the Arabic language is not protected, so that the protection of dhikr is actualized, otherwise it's nonsense. It's hieroglyph written on the side of a mountain. It does not benefit anybody if it's not known what the meaning of it. Like hieroglyphic writing in Egypt, stayed almost 2,000 years, or 2,500 years, nobody knew what is it. Until someone by luck found this famous stone, in which this is written with another kind of writing, and then with Greek writing. The other kind of writing is the mother of Coptic writing. And then the key was there, and then people bent on that bit by bit by bit. Very painstaking work, taking now over a century, and still is not completely complete. There's still some symbols we don't know what they mean exactly. If that's protected by being on the world, does not make any sense, but it's not a divine address. It's just history. It can go lost, it can stay. It's irrelevant. But here for the dhikr, which Allah says, I'm protecting it, it's very relevant. That's it. So that's it. So go again, concerning Arabic language, I just mentioned necessity of reason casually, because I think the writing is addressed to rational beings. For the Sunnah, it's a very laborious work discussed there. Very laborious. First of all, the Sunnah is dhikr, and is included in the dhikr and lahu hafidun. But clearly what we see, the variations and wording and so on, let's support what do you mean of protection now? Now we analyze history, and then we conclude if that makes any sense for the Sunnah, then in the way I described, that no Sunnah, no genuine Sunnah could be lost forever, nor any fabrication will be fooling everyone forever until Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's not going to happen. It's impossible. That's the protection of the Sunnah. Okay, good.
So we go to the next one.
Expanded on many things, but I think it's the fundamental importance. Especially keep in mind the Quran is and also we have been adding a Quranic condition discussion. We discussed it in the beginning of these halaqas of tafsir, now 4 years over, is that the usual conception that it is oral transmission only and so on, and the writing is secondary, is a mistake. Because we have the writing going all the way to the time of the Prophet, and his system of writing, and giving a command that whatever the Quran is written on, nothing else should be mixed with it to make it pure, which was misunderstood by many people, that he prohibited writing the Sunnah, which is false. It's a fallacy. It's completely annihilated. But some Quranis and some other mentally deranged or badly intended Orientalists took that and ran with it. The hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, أنه نهانا أن نكتب شيئا من كتب عني غير القرآن فليمحوه. Meaning in the same صحيفة. Because there are many generations. Besides, these people who take this hadith as an evidence, this hadith itself is also narrated, not written. So how can this be an authority and others not there? It's just eternally contradictory. It's a joke. The people are jokers. who try to get there, to undermine Sunnah. We don't need to follow because nothing can be ascertained. No, it can be ascertained. Besides, what's narrated by Tawatur is ascertained by necessity of reason. We don't need an eye of protection. What's narrated by Tawatur. We don't need even to take out the protection of the Sunnah. It's historic necessity indicate that what's narrated by Tawatur, provided it's checked thoroughly that it's really Tawatur, not ending with one person or something like that. If that's the case, then it's Tawatur. But it has to be checked, that's Tawatur. But by Tawatur, by necessity reason, anything, even narration about Qis Khan, has nothing to do with protection of the dhikr. So this has to be sorted out very carefully and in a rational way. Now, why the Quran is originally related as script is the Quran says about itself, وَإِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ مَجِيدٌ فِي لَوْحٍ مَحْفُوظٍ. It is a glorious Quran, a majestic Quran in a protected tablet. Some people say it is the tablet written at the beginning of the world. Oh, this is just a fantasy running away. There's no evidence in Quran there's a tablet written at the founding of the world. No, that's the only place where Lawh Mahfuz. And in other places of the Quran relating also to the Quran and so on. Someone can scan them, Lawh al-Mahfuz, Lawh al-Mahfuz. And then another place, إنه responding to say it came with the devil. Say no, it is في كتاب المكنون. It is in a maknoon, meaning engulfed with protection, like something in a kinna. If you put something in a bag and close it firmly, nobody can get to it. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, cannot be touched except the purified one. And this purified one, from the context, are the angels in heaven. Maybe it's not a material book, but it is metaphorically, it is originally, fundamentally a script. And the revelation to Muhammad was both a script, fundamentally, and the pronunciation.
Okay, next question. Somebody's asked this. Okay. Have you considered a group of episodes on the Seerah of Rasulullah?
In the main stations, we can, but it is, yeah, we could, in respect that, for example, the issue of the 3 years initial da'wah, the issues of claiming that this one Sahabi is the first one to embrace, and these things which are used for who is more noble than the others. All of this, most of it is nonsense, but having just a general section about Seerah, but we have the important section, like, for example, the writing about Mana'a al-Nusra, which show how he was Talab al-Nusra, what does it really mean? This covers the later years in Mecca, for example, in stage. What else in Seerah is there? Let's say Safar, they were excluded before that in Sha'b Amr. Yeah, we can mention that. Yeah, no problem. We can have like a summary Seerah. The main highlights are enough. And they're known by Tawatur, by necessity, and difference also in the Quran.
Do you want to do that in the, the weekly halakas? Do you think it's worth doing it in there?
It needs some going through that. Yeah, it's possible, but I don't think it's...
I mean,
for that, better for that, there are good series like Rahiq al-Makhtoum. I mentioned that several times in time past. Rahiq al-Makhtoum, or Mukhtasar Sirat Ibn Hisham itself. You can start with that. And then if there's issues, things in your mind, it does not negate the necessity of writing a seerah. Like we have also Munir al-Ghadban, al-Manhaj al-Haraki min al-Seerah. The manhaj, the way of carrying da'wah and establishing state and so on, taken from Seerah. But he went to extremes that every small issue there, he derived from it plenty of laws. That's not the way to go. From the Seerah, you have to do the general structure of Seerah, and then the single issues and so on, you have to verify. If it's a single issue, then you have to verify the validity of the narration and so on. Because the Seerah is qat'i when it gives you the general picture. But what happened in that situation, like for example, there's the following narration. You find it in Tabarani, that the Messenger of Allah allegedly went with Ali ibn Abi Talib at night. Nobody was there. And Ali, he said, Ali, carry me on your shoulders, or step over my shoulders. So Ali said, no, I can't step over your shoulder. I said, okay, can you carry me? He said, yes. So the Messenger of Allah went on top of him, on his shoulder, and then to some idols in the Kaaba and pulled them down, so they broke on them. And they both went back to their places running, and nobody detected them. The issue with that is that it is the general well-known established fact that he never touched the idols until he conquered Mecca with the master. So he never touched them. This is an exclusion for that. It could have happened by night, but concluding from that it is okay to broke the idol while you are not in a commanding position, having the power of a state, is problematic, because that hadith is single, not narrated anywhere in the seer. Secondly, there is not a question about it. So you don't build something. I don't know if Al-Ghadwan derived anything from that, but someone could come to this idea based on that, ignoring that he never touched the idols. Yes, he never came to them, forsake them, turn his back to them, but he never broke them or shattered them until he conquered Mecca. Even Hajjat in the Umrah, replacement Umrah, after the Hudaybiyah and so on, he performed the Umrah. There was no narration that he asked for the idol to be removed, anything like that. They are as there. Because the one who have the power, control the place, are keeping them there. And he's just coming to the sanctuary of Allah and just avoid touching and having any sign of honoring the idols. He just treat them as non-existent, but not destroying them. I just want to mention one example like that. Just from one single narration or one single incident, you cannot conclude, unless you have supporting evidence, any ruling. But the general picture is clear. The idols were destroyed when he conquered Mecca, never before, in any significant exception in this hadith, which is questionable.
It could be an idea if we do take another newer seerah, because I mean we've read Ibn Hizam.
Maybe after the Quran, inshallah. We'll see.
Okay.
If we are still alive at that time. Otherwise, as I said, you have the right.
Because you could also go through Yasir Qadhi's one. I have a copy of it. I haven't gone through it because I lent it out. But Yasir Qadhi's done one, and I've heard it's really good. So it could be worth
listen to it and write your notes, and whatever conclusion he makes there, and things like that. We can go from there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got somebody who wants to unmute? Far away, bruv. I've allowed you to unmute. Hello. Okay, while we're waiting, let's go to the next question then. Okay, so this is in a non-Muslim minority domain in an Islamic state. If a Muslim commits a crime against a non-Muslim or violates,
I don't know which domain you're talking about.
Muslim minority. When you have a confederation type of relationship, which you mentioned.
The confederation is an independent entity. It has its own law. The only obligation is the issue of the obligation of avoiding riba and keeping the public peace. There will be no confederation if you go and kill them or they come and kill you. So they will administer according to criminal law. So let's get his question. What's his question?
Okay. So if a Muslim commits a crime, he hasn't specified which type of crime against a non-Muslim or violates either laws. Is he put to account according to Islamic law or the law of that particular religious law within that domain?
We have no authority there except to the things which agreed upon in the confederation. And they will specify in the case someone commits a crime, for example, a member of the confederation commits a crime and run to the Islamic domain trying to find protection. There must be in the agreement, clearly in that case, in the agreement, is that really if it is a crime according to Islamic law, like what is the case in Britain, and according to the law of the people, they can ask the super state, the confederate leadership, which is the Islamic state, this guy violated our law, and it's in violation of Islamic law, he committed a crime, and he ran away to you. Hand him to us, because that's the place he committed the crime. It was most likely the analysis of fiqh and so on, these fine details, I didn't analyze. The brother is dreaming in a dream world.
It's a valid question.
Well, we're not even having Islamic state or any understanding of a confederation.
Because there's a practical import. If you're going to derive
a practical import now, where is the Islamic state? Where is the confederation?
Well, you could, for example, be advising. You could, for example, advise people who are
to establish confederation.
So take, for example, Syria. Say, for example, you're in discussion with people
That's
within
the first advice. They must finish the root user system completely in their domain first before they ask the Christian areas to do that if they give them confidential rights. But not even giving them confidential rights. The Syrian state is functioned as a patriotic or national system, not a confederate, not giving the other their full rights.
So this requires ijtihad, or is there a considerable leeway?
Small issues like that require some more ijtihad. Yeah.
Also, is there a considerable leeway in terms of the area of permissibility? For example, if you have an agreement between you two, would they be able to stipulate you can extradite a Muslim back to here for the crime of theft?
Definitely based on the principle of the Confederation and the general principle of Islamic law.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to abbreviate the answer, it needs more.
That's in the case he does a crime there, run to us.
Yeah. They said they can come back. I think Jeff
Okay, bro. If you want to be unmuted, you need to pay attention. I'll unmute you again. Okay. Okay. So sorry. Sorry. So it's a question of related to area of permissibility within mutual agreements and also further ijtihad required. And he's also asked about
the structure of confederation is very clear. They are independent entity, except confederation requires that they don't start war with anyone else outside because of old grudges or whatever historically without the permission of with the Islamic State, the leading state of the confederation. That's number one. And they don't have any alliance or allegiances with other entities except with the permission of the Islam, which will not be given if this is a kafir harbi, etc. Things like that's clear by the definition of muwala and muada. Everything else except the issue of usury and standards of wage and measure, which is necessity, dictated by necessity of usury, weight and measure and so on, are now even international. We don't need to discuss that. That's very clear now. Otherwise, you can't communicate buying and selling. Have no human possible relation with this state and buying and selling. Even in that, for example, with Najran, it's specified that the messenger of them, the people sent by the messenger of Allah to them, they have the right to stay 20 days there, 20 days there, I think in the cost of the Najrani. And after that, the Najrani tells them, show over your shoulder, get out. It's very clear. Just read these things and you say small question like that. The only question which arises is the following: someone committed a crime in their domain, which is a crime under Islamic law, which usually will be the case. What will be a crime? Killing, theft, is all law system, but not political dispute, for example, because there may be a hereditary monarchy, and he condemned the hereditary monarchy and calling the people to rise, and he ran away. That's not a crime for the Islam. Just say, sorry. You have to sort your internal philosophical and legal problem under yourself. We have granted him asylum. We cannot give it to you, and that's what Britain does, for example. Yeah, that's it. So if it is having these two conditions, then he comes to the Islamic State. He committed a crime, and which is also a crime of kafir, and he ran away. Hand him back. Yes, I think that's perfectly fine. I think, but it has to be analyzed a little bit deeper. But it's such a secondary question. You have to get the idea of confederation in people's heads, which has been forsaken through the centuries. Although practically it was by the Uthmani similar, but on other grounds and so on. To get to such a particular problem. And in the opposite direction, they are obviously obliged to deliver him to Islamic domain. Because they are the confederate. We are the leadership organization.
That was the second question.
When Islam is dominant, that's clear in that direction. The assumption is there that if we would crime him, it will be a genuine crime sanctioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There will be not someone attacking the Khalifa and calling him son of a bitch. That's not a crime. It will not be any state prosecuted for that. Should get a red card. There is not more an Islamic state. And then the question does not arise. They have right or not right. So what is really real crime in the Islamic domain, which is clarified by the general structure of the constitution, and he runs there, they cannot give him asylum. That's breaking the alliance, because it's an alliance essentially. So things are very clear. That's very clear.
Okay. Okay. The brother
But I wonder if the brothers are going to set minimal shares as if they are sitting now writing a constitution. Are you writing a constitution? Alhamdulillah.
No, I can see merit in
No,
asking
no.
some of these
This
questions.
is the desire to go into details which are not relevant now and can be settled future. We have to settle the Islamic constitution.
Because the same could be said about having a constitution. Is like you know you need to build a constitution before you take power, so and you campaign on it. So,
Anyway, yeah.
okay. I mean, it's probably just down to time and priority, I suppose.
The framework of the constitution was established as Sahifat al-Medina. Before that, the Messenger of Allah was maximum the head of the Muhajirin as a stateless group which were originally citizens of a tribe which Quraysh, but they are out now, so they construct themselves to be like a state with him as a head. That's a very small state, very small tribe. There's no need for a complicated procedure, and the Messenger of Allah is infallible. He will not commit injustice. Nothing needs to be written. By the way, there is narration that he made mu'akha, brotherhood between the Muhajirin in Mecca before immigration. So he's preparing for that situation. We have to study that from Sirah and analyze it. But this is secondary. It's gone by history. Now to get the others in the confederation, even the Khazraj and Ansar and so on, the Sahih of Medina specified that. What's their obligation was it? But it gives the general rule. Medina and so on, including the fortification of the Jews, is haram, is a place where peace is dominant. Nobody should do any violence. Nobody should give refuge to any criminal. No. And the other principle is that whoever commits a crime is responsible for himself. His nation and people are not responsible until they ally with him and gang around him. Then the federation is broken, and that's very clear. And any issue which may touch the general security, facade could cause corruption and bloodshed. Any issue of this between two or various and so on, or between one Muslim entity, one non-Muslim entity, any issue which is its nature indicate that it could lead to bloodshed and facade must be referred to the Messenger of Allah, to the head of the state of the federation, and this can be analyzed and put in the constitution that any dispute between the states, the member states, a dispute which may lead to bloodshed and endanger the public security, not a dispute about how money belongs there, that can be settled by the court. That doesn't cause facade. Anything which is dangerous to level bloodshed and war must be referred to the head of the state.
Just one question.
That's Sahifat al-Medina. So we have to analyze that and sit on that first.
Okay. One quick related question. One of the Shabazz mentioned if there's an unequal relationship between the states, as an Islamic state is more dominant, would that be a federal state as opposed to, rather than a confederation, or is this a
no? The other ones are independent states. They have their independent citizenship and so on. And the details of how these citizens can come in and go out has to be regulated by the agreement of the confederation. It's an agreement beside being part of the constitution, but the framework will be established in the Islamic State Confederation constitution.
So it's a confederation with a controlling entity being the Islamic domain, because
in the general sense, just the frame, far away frame.
Because having this controlling interest with respect to riba and
only riba is specified. Their crosses, their deen, everything.
But in terms of, like, if for example you could stipulate returning a Muslim,
the brother is stuck with this point is already set by Sahifat al-Medina and so on.
Cool.
Let's go to main important things. Like, for example, they have a system which allow prostitution under certain controls, and they charge them taxes and so on. To the hell with them. Let them do that. Have nothing to do with us. In their domain. Yeah? That's what I mean. Nothing is excluded. Everything, especially their religion, their crosses, and so on. No one will be removed from his head. No well-established endowment or trust and so on will be touched. Completely independent. The only thing part is that they have to have the Walaya Islamiyah. No war and peace except as sanctioned by the Islamic State. That's it. Essential. and usury is actually act of war. That's the reason. فأذن بحرب من الله ورسوله. So usury is war. But if you are in your own domain having usury, and you are already a kufr domain, you just shut up. So the Shabab should become scale things like that. We should be getting the Ummah out of the decline of several, almost a millennium plus, and get busy with picky, with small issues like that. But the issues are clear. It's not at liberty or not liberty. The Islam should avoid getting in all other things except in usury. And I said the necessary connected with necessary reason, ways and measures. Usury is defined equal measures, equal care. What are the equal? You have to agree on a definition. Okay. Now it's international agreement. What's the kilogram? What's the We have definition accepted internationally. That's it. As simple as that.
Cool.
Simple.
Okay. Okay, next question. So this
Look at things from someone who is living in this situation, and that kind of confederation with all these rights essentially was changed by Muawiyah usurping power. Essentially disappeared. He did not touch that, but he allowed himself to enact things like that. The diya would be half and things like that. That's all Muawiyah invented. That's his bid'ah, his inventions. That's the real danger to Islam, his inventions. Instead on focusing on riba. And he himself was playing with riba, trying to play his tail, and Umar stopped him with Ubadah ibn Samit. It's another story. That's history. The invasion started with Muawiyah. But they kept everyone. There were areas in Bilad al-Sham. They were centuries, essentially like foreign country, except that they don't fight with the others or communicate with them. That's meaning that it belongs to what other, if you are a confederate and you allow yourself to communicate with especially a hostile entity and give them our secrets. Which kind of confederation is that? Which kind of alliance? That's breaking the alliance. But it's clear by the definition of the confederation. Confederation is essentially like a federation, but it's not a federation. It's an alliance, but a tighter alliance. Something between an alliance, completely independent states, except a matter of war and peace, and member states of a federation, like the United States of America. Texas doesn't have embassies in London. A confederate entity may have embassies. Maybe they don't have any need.
Okay, let's discuss the next question, Doc. I think you've answered it, inshallah.
Yeah. So I think it's clear. Yeah, but it needs. I'm just wondering about the guys asking about things.
Look, look, we're getting new people all the time. We're going to get new questions.
I agree. But okay, we should try to avoid getting what someone called for the classical fuqaha, because the main job would have been to account rulers and watch for the society in totality, and then they obviously barred from that, or they were too coward to do that, or whatever motivation. So they went to the splitting issues of fiqh. Someone said a very nasty word, says this is involved in so-called mental jerking off. In German, geistige Onanie. We should not get there. There's many major issues you can involve in there, and issues related to da'wah and fundamental issues. Yeah, just a focus should. Unless someone is really writing a constitutional draft, then okay, great. I would like to cooperate with someone like that. Otherwise, don't get in that yet. Let's get how to get the Ummah out of this situation and get really an entity which is really will be in matter of guaranteeing of freedoms and freedom of speech and so on, outclassing all Western claims of freedom of speech, for example.
Okay, let's move on. Brother, you're in a place you can talk now, far away.
Assalamu alaikum, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I remember one time, why do these questions always disappear when I'm about to ask? SubhanAllah. Actually, let someone else
write
go
it
first.
down, and you don't have thought it about properly. So better leave it for someone else now until you write it down and structure your thoughts.
1 second. That's
Okay. Don't be upset about that, but it's going in the way which is just you get scattered instead of getting focused and achieving some understanding and connecting the particulars to the fundamentals. But let's say if you can remember this one at least. But in future, try to do that. Sometimes you ask a question and think about it, you recognize it's nonsensical.
Let me just jump in very quickly. There's while you're there, Somebody's asked, they sent you some observation about the word alayhi tis'at ashar, over it on 19.
What did he say?
He sent you some work, some observations about the verse alayhi tis'at ashar. Did you receive it? He's apparently sent it via the Arabic channel.
Unless he writes, please forward that to Sheikh or remind him or someone. In the Arab channel, I don't attend simply because the reader, I have reader because I can't read directly. My reader in Arabic is miserable, so I gave off. So I look only in the English channel.
But if somebody has these kind of questions, who in the Arabic side should he send it to pass towards you?
Just write there. It is for the Sheikh, but I cannot connect him except through this way. Please find a way to communicate with him.
So somebody within the
Or
Arabic
ask
channel.
Okash, or ask Raj to communicate that to him.
Leave me out the Arabic side, man. That goes nowhere. It's the
Well,
most frustrating thing.
then ask Okasha and so on.
Okasha. So does he? Okay, I'll send him Okasha's detail. Tell him to deal with it because I ain't dealing with the Arabic side because it's Yom Qiyamah before you get a reply.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay. All right. Are you ready now, bruv?
No, I'm just looking for.
Okay, tell you what,
something.
go on mute until structure yourself.
Leave it for another later, inshallah. No problem.
It's you got to be considerate of other people. Yeah, this is like you've got. You know what I mean? Anyways, when you're ready, when you've
For himself,
sorted your life out,
don't worry
then
about
you
the
can ask
people.
them.
For yourself, this way you get scattered. Structure the things, think about them, and then you have a.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Half of the knowledge having the correct question, formulated correctly.
Okay. You should. Somebody was asking how much you charge. I think we should start charging them. People will.
We don't charge, alhamdulillah.
I know, I was just kidding. Somebody asked, and I thought he was kidding. Okay, so this is a long question somebody submitted. Okay, it's in relation to blasphemy laws, Pakistan, obviously.
Again, they're grinding all that. There's no blasphemy laws in Islam.
Don't worry. Anyway, let me read it out so that it's because the reason why I think this will be relevant because it's a topical issue and people. It will provide some context.
And not only because of that, because governments are playing with that to exercise terror against the people. For example, when Sadat say he thinks about how to get Sharia back and so on, the first thing he asked his people and his cronies and thugs in the Egyptian parliament is to start studying blasphemy laws. He want to have a sword to kill his opponents using Islam this time instead of using this argument of nationalism and so on.
I mean. Ultimately, for Pakistan, you know why that is. It's because it's the perfect scapegoat. You blame minorities for whatever they do. Just same what's happening in the UK. Rather than addressing systemic failures, problems, the Zionists just weaponize it, promote it. Because of what? It gets away from the actual problems of your own society, which they themselves have made. Okay, right. So this is the question. I'm going to read it out in full. If you're able to just comment at the end and I'll, if there needs clarification, but I'll just read it as it is. So the first part is from a purely Sharia perspective. Are there any texts that prohibit making imagery, depiction of any of the messengers or prophets of Allah, especially Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? This is in a perspective of modern day creation shows, movies this is without any ill intent, ridiculing on the life of the Prophet and his noble companions.
No, the ridiculing another issue. This guy doesn't need to picture. You can ridicule in worse than pictures.
Yeah.
So
the intent is not for that. So you say there's nothing that prohibits it.
No. Okay.
Part 2 of the question: If it is deemed haram, prohibited by text of Kitab or Sunnah, then can there be laws created that will equate to blasphemy or law in violation of such?
Why it is deemed? Why they concentrate blasphemy on that? Why not, especially on that? We have clear blasphemy of someone and say, I believe that Maryam, peace be upon her, is an adulteress, like the Jews say, for example. Why go to the Prophet and the picture and so on? This is more straight path. Huh?
Okay, let me put some questions. I want to read it out just in full because the brother, he's involved in the dawah, so he will likely be having to engage with this question.
No, but so giving this had meaning he did not see the direction of blasphemy and kufr in general.
Sometimes having a soundbite like this itself, wrapped up in a form of a question, can itself be used quite effectively in this brother dawah. Okay, this question is in context. Recently in Pakistan, a major TV channel, Geo TV, allegedly showed a depiction of the Messenger of Allah and Al-Hassan wal Hussein. While this production was AI generated for the sake of depicting some parts of Sirah and the relationship to Al-Hassan wal Hussein, it was a special transmission documentary for the months of Muharram, and they did blur the faces of the Messenger of Allah and the companions. But still, this has caused an outcry from the conservative part of the society, the clergy, as they assert this is haram.
Because they are ignorant. That's it.
And they said it's prohibited Islam by consensus ijma of Muslims, and anyone can be charged under.
No, that's what they imagine. That's not true. That's all not true. That's all not true.
Okay, so just for a laugh, if you want to know what the Section 295A of the Pakistan Penal Code criminalizes deliberate and malicious acts intended to outrage the religious feelings of any religious group.
That's something is a matter of outraging the public and leading to public insecurity has to be analyzed properly.
Yeah, this isn't that. This doesn't fall into that anyway. So
okay, that's another issue. Like for example, let's go to Maryam alayhi salam. Yeah, okay, Maryam. Quran is adamant and part of Islamic belief that is pure and holy. She cannot be stained by anything, by necessity of Quran. If the Quran from Allah, that must be the case, the reality, and must be the belief of everyone. Good. Now the Jews believe otherwise, and the Quran mentioned that, and definitely they were doing that in the Bayt al-Midrash, because they have a Bayt al-Midrash in Medina, and they're saying it possibly.
Midrash? What's a Midrash?
Midrash, madrasa, school. They have Bayt al-Midrash there in Medina. Possibly even in Medina, or possibly in their fortification and so on. Doesn't matter. This is part of the confederation, part of the protection of the religion. That's easy, no problem. Anyway, it must be stated there. The question arises, that's definitely blasphemy and kufr. Any repercussion from Allah? No. Any prohibition saying no, stop this? No. The only thing which you can construct, let's assume they go walk in the streets of Medina outside their fortification, because fortification, they have their religion. We don't interfere in that. And their kufr and their brothers, if they have brothers, it's none of our business. But if they go walk in Medina with banners saying,
Please.
wait a little bit, carrying a banner, saying that loudly, like a song and so on, walking the street with that. That will be doing blasphemy in such a way to be offensive to the public. Then the issue of offensive to the public is not the issue of freedom of belief and so on. The freedom is guaranteed, but nobody will attack them, and so nobody even touch that issue in their domain or in their private personality. But if do it like in a communal work, in a demonstration, carrying a banner, I know the Jews never did that. Then there will be an issue to be discussed about that. Okay? Which has to be analyzed deeply on Sharia provisions, genuine Sharia provisions. Okay? That's it. From that public issue, we have to analyze, is that really secured and guaranteed by freedom of expression and freedom of belief and religion, la ikraha fi din, or because it's public, the public domain, then some restriction of the no compulsory will be there. That should not be allowed and should be known to everyone. And any violating that is essentially challenging the public order, which may reach a certain level. That's obviously to be left to the judiciary. It's to be treated. If it is that evil, then it's an act of war. Then we are talking about muharaba. If it's not that evil, according to the judge's situation, obviously it's acts of war clear if they do the demonstration, carrying weapons and beating anyone coming in their way. That's very clear act of war. Then the police can step in immediately, but that's only if they're exercising with weapons. And they're saying in an offensive way, make photos of them or detain if necessary until the identities are established, because they may be masked, for example, and then take it to the court, and the judge will analyze. Did that reach the level of declaration of war and offending the public, or there's a bunch of idiots, mentally deranged going around, and then he administered then just a punishment for that, for disturbing the public peace, and starting something which looks like an invitation to public dispute and initiation of war. The limit is war, not kufr and iman. Just the utterance does not mean anything. Like Amudal Khuwaisra told the Messenger of Allah, اعدل فإن كلام تعدل. This is a statement of kufr. It doesn't need to be there. And the messenger just answered him, who will be just if Allah and his messenger are not just? And the man in an arrogant way turned away and went. And Umar said, هذا منافق. This one belongs openly as if you're Muslim, but Allah is a kafir. Let me kill him. Said, leave him. And then the messenger comment, from this school, from this genealogy of this, meaning the intellectual genealogy, they will come people who read the Quran. There's not, because he seems to be a Quran reader with short soap, Salafi, with an unorganized beard, Salafi again, and Mahlouk shaved his head, Salafi again. He shaved the hair of Kufr. What you find in many Salafi and Wahhabi quarters, that when they embrace Wahhabism and give bay'ah to the Imam or to Ibn Saud, they shave their head, because before that they admit that they were kafir. Although the shaving with the head is a questionable point and not narrated that good, but it was assumed in that case it is clear because you are transferring from belief to belief. So, in that, they read the Quran, but doesn't go down. We discussed that million of times. Doesn't go. They don't digest it. They shallow reading. Okay, one of them is in front of you now. لئن أدركتهم, now that's a crucial point. لئن أدركتهم لأقتلنهم قتل عاد. What mean if I meet them? Meet them in a community with a sword. That's the meaning of it. It can't be otherwise, because one of them is in front of you now here, and Umar asked to kill him. So it's clear. The picture is very clear. And what he said is clear kufr and blasphemy. Insulting Allah and Messenger, they are unjust. What do you want more insult than that?
So your provision about constructing some kind of administrative law about being obstructing the of being not just for sake of words, not being conducive to public good.
No, not conducive. It is offensive to the public and maybe initiating conflict and bloodshed.
Okay, and
So
in that case,
the initiation is an act which looks like an act of war, endangering public security, not conducive, endangering public security.
Reason I asked this very specifically, in a follow-on question, the brother said, if it's allowed to permissible to depict the prophet or others,
leave that.
Let me explain.
Complete the complete point, because I don't.
Okay, so let me. So if
I did not finish the point of the Khoisara.
Okay,
we have another blasphemy case. We get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Second one is that we have no other evidence to know something except one narration, one single narration. So that may be not enough authority to make a ruling for that. Let's assume it is valid and by tawatur. A woman was found killed. And also did investigation. Who did it? And someone was accused. And was back and forth in the masjid about that. And then a blind man came wavering and so on to say, I am the one who killed her, not the one being accused. So what's this? What's come? Why did that come? Remember, she was killed and dumped. Nobody knows her identity. At the time, there were no fingerprints, no IDs, and so on. And most likely, she is a hijabi woman in her house. Nobody knows her. She said, I was loving this woman like my own eyes, and she was caring for me and so on. But she was continuously insulting the Messenger of Allah and swearing at him. She was not a believer. I tolerated, I advised that. One day I lost a plot and attacked her and killed her and recognized that I committed a crime. So I took her, maybe with help of some of his relatives, and dumped her away so nobody can trace her. So he feels guilty. He thinks he did something wrong. That's the reason here. Then he recognized, I have to admit that the investigation must go further. And the First Allah approved that in the sense they said, yes, you are telling the truth. That's by wahi. But the circumstances indicate that. Although dumping her away is question mark, could be a question mark, but clearly a blind man and she was the one caring for him, there must be something nasty over there. What did Messenger commented? This man cannot be prosecuted or and they say لا ينتطع بأعزان دمها هدر. She caused her own bloodshed. Her blood is not protected. This means the one who killed her may have a reason not to be accounted for murder. That's all. Does not mean that the state will do or he will have done that. Because he would not have done that, we know from another story. Let me complete the picture. So we establish things on whatever is available of evidence, not on hand waving and feeling and nonsense. Abu Hurairah's mother did not embrace Islam. Nobody was caring her for possible and so on. She was with Abu Hurairah in Medina. And she used also to insult the Prophet. Okay. In that case, Abu Hurairah is hearing and so on. What he did, he went to Messenger of Allah, weeping, crying, saying, my mother is going to hell. Every time I talked to her, she insulted and attacked. Very nasty. I cannot even repeat what she is saying. What Abu Hurairah is asking, Messenger of Allah, please make for dua that Allah guides to Islam, because he will end in hellfire. That's all that Abu Hurairah. Maybe you say Abu Hurairah is short in understanding. Yes, he may be short. He's not a faqih. Agree with that. But he is offering his point of view. If his fiqh would have been wrong in this case, the Messenger of Allah say, no, you should have done this and this. No, it's okay. So what did the Messenger do? He prayed for her that Allah guides her to Islam. When Abu Hurairah came back home, hopeful, not thinking it would happen that fast. When he came close to home, she said, hold there on, I am taking a shower. Baptism is what they call it. They say when you embrace Islam, you're supposed to have a full body wash. You could call that in ancient tradition of John the Baptist and Christianity is the baptism. Is a symbolic act showing that you are cleaning yourself from the filth of the kufr before that. And then when I said, okay, because simply the house is very simple house with no walls and so on. So if you take a shower, the others have to exit the house. So he waited until he finished. And she said, I finished now, come. When he entered immediately, he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Abu Hurairah said, I was so over with happiness, I ran back to Messenger of Allah like crazy. Take from that whatever you want. No, she was doing that at privacy of her home. 16 days. And so the conclusion of the act of the blind man was out of desperation, a moment of rage, because he's blind, that she's the only way carry, and he was in love with her, and he explained all things fit together, indicate that really that. And then after that, he was so terrified from his act that he dumped the bra. That's wrong. But and taking all the circumstances, a judge will say, he did not do that because he knew he made something wrong and he tried to hide it. That's bad. He should not have done that. But it's very difficult to account him in such a situation of really an act where he is not fully rational, really, in a rage situation. For a woman, he loved her and was tolerating her for maybe all his lifetime, and she was caring for him. But that's the only sore point which exploded. So he has deep iman, but not the correct answer how to do. Maybe he's desperate because what he will do? Divorce her? Who will care for him? We don't know. So from the circumstances, he made a wrong by dumping the body, yes, but I'm saying, but he will not be account for killing her. Say the muhahada, the one who does that. So we conclude with that. We advise everyone, if you have kufr or blasphemy, keep it for yourself and keep it in your house and in your community. Don't come publicly, because if you come publicly, some people will be so outraged that will kill you, and then your blood will not be. You will not get a treatment like people who have full protection of the law. You lost protection by saying it publicly, and maybe some people get outraged. In that case, she lost the protection of her blood because she did it so a level that even the loving husband went off the control. These are the only evidences we have in that. Mutlaq, nothing else. So these were their nonsense, dump it in the rubbish. That's the only one we have. And all the time, he didn't kill any munafiq because of nifaq. Only if they exit and join the kuffar, then harbi khalas. Game over. But that's very clear from Sunnah. But these people did not, the scholars in time past did not read the seerah. And they come with certain excuses which are stinky, say. And the Prophet did it because he did not want to cause upheaval, and people say Muhammad is killing his companions. Which kind of nonsense is it? If it's obligation to kill them or muzzle them, he would not have violated the obligation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the maximum they could say, Now the Messenger of Allah is gone, and then we are at liberty to do it. No, because it's not only that he did not do it and say, I will not, do you want the people to say Muhammad is killing his companion? It was mentioning to Umar the bad results of doing that. This is not the reason of the rule, because the case of Abu Khuwaisara, which was before his death, maybe a few months, was that when the tribes came, camped near Medina, preparing for Hijjat al-Wada. They came, there was a huge camp in Medina, and they were so kept busy with ceremonies, with the horse racing and so on. That's the occasion where the Khaisat walk. So nothing abrogates that. If there's abrogation, he ordered Umar, no. So don't play games. And he mentioned even that this is the way of behavior which will come in the genealogy of people who will be Khawarij. And they will be, he will exterminate them when they come out. When they came out with the sword. That's what they did. And that's what Ali ibn Abi Talib exactly applied. So the picture is clear now. The Messenger of Allah could not have been negligent in his duty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No way that. Otherwise, that's clear kufr. Then we are talking about a highway robber, not one Messenger of Allah. Let's be clear and straightforward. And all these that the Faqih Fulan said, this said, that is all nonsense. So I suggest dump it in the rubbish. And the reason for war, and this connects also with their theory, that war, kafir are worthy of bloodshed, any automatic. It's not true. Al-Kufr yahdur al-dam. Kufr does not yahdur al-dam. Kufr does not yahdur al-dam. Only acts of war, acts of aggression lead to bloodshed. Has nothing to do with kufr. Could be from a kafir, could be someone nominally Muslim, could be from munafiq. If it comes to that level, acts of war or clear evaluation and initiation of acts of war by pulling the sword, like the Khawarij did with Ali ibn Talib later, in the early phase, there was no fight. And they separate aside, say, okay, you can separate aside.
Okay, just to round out the question, just so I cover everything.
Okay.
So if it is permitted to depict, follow-up question, is it allowed for the sake of keeping this, just for clarity, for the sake of keeping this door shut tight, at least a depiction of the Messenger of Allah to prevent the depiction of the Messenger of Allah to prevent fitna? Would that be acceptable?
Prevent fitna, it should, the people should told there's no fitna in that.
Okay.
That's
in terms of permissible, then, if it is permissible, then it can be said, can be made legislation made under. Okay, don't worry. The rest of it, I mean, I think your question's already answered.
You don't need the legislation for that. You establish this alone and then broadcast to the people and open a discussion like this discussion. You get the classical school, say, what is your point of view there? There's the only two hadith we have. They will bring you the stories of the book of Sayf al-Masu' ala Shatim al-Rajul. There was a dispute at Ibn Taymiyyah, and he wrote the book Al-Sarim al-Masu' ala Shatim al-Rasul. That the one who a non-Muslim insulting the Messenger of Allah and so on is okay to execute him. It was even a dispute at the time, and he made long-winded arguments and so on, and mentioned a story with Muawiyah, a story with this. All of them are not an authority, and some of them are not structured properly. But when it comes to really evidence from Quran and Sunnah, it doesn't have anything solid except hand-waving arguments. But read it for this brother, read it. And the people have to be educated about that. And if someone still feel internally that he cannot look at the picture and so on and does not believe it's right, fine, don't look at it. Turn your face. It's all nonsense. Besides, we have a narration, but verifying it is very difficult because it's some history books, not in the book of Hadith and usual Sirah, is that the king of China sent a delegation from a Messenger of Allah with gifts and so on. One of them, the delegation of him was a Rajul called Waqqas, so on and so on. That's a Sahib, not Sa'd ibn Waqqas. Some people confuse that. And he came with a Messenger of Allah saying, come to China and carry a da'wah here. And the Messenger of Allah sent him back, wrote to him back that, listen, I am not allowed to live here and I have a work here to do, but my companion, Waqqas, will go back again. Waqqas came from the one from Yemen. They were doing trade with India and they established masjid there and they were protected and so on, the king of China. So there's no state of war. Definitely, I will send other companions with him. They will live there and they will be a good substitute for me. And in the letter, I said, if that's difficult for you, because the king knows it will be difficult, he shows his affection, then I want to see you. Can you sit for my he said, what they call it, the immediate, the one who makes an immediate portrait of yourself. We have skilled one, like in the Hyde Park corner, there's some are sitting there, they can make a portrait for you right away. I sent one of our best artists to have a picture. Can you please set so I can have the picture at least, beside your companion carrying the da'wah properly. And the narration says, the Messenger sat with two to his right, two to his left. They mention their names are not mentioned, but must be containing Abu Bakr, Umar, and most likely. And the picture was done and sent to the Emperor of China. And the Chinese narration claim, the Chinese narration, not a Muslim narration, that the Emperor could not go to sleep any night until he goes and enjoy the picture. Unfortunately, we don't know where is this picture. He must have protected it and put it maybe it's in one of the palaces underground, and one day it will be dug out. It would be miraculous almost to find it. Then we know how the Messiah really looked, not as we will imagine. But he sat for them, according to the narration. We cannot verify the isnad and so on, definitely in these historic books. But what's the reason for the people writing a history to invent this story? What's their motivation? There's no motivation. None of them known to be a Chinese agent or a Chinese lover. None of them to be pro-picture or anti-picture. It seems to be genuine. But we cannot say it is established with certainty or with a high probability. No, but it is. So all of this is just nonsense. That's nonsense. Just nonsense. Someone said this is... how can someone depict the messenger of Allah, and we know otherwise as an actor he's a sinner and he's a fornicator, and the same person? I mean, when you make tamthiliya, when you make a drama, the one doing the drama is supposed to be merging with the character of the drama. It's not his own character. He's another person representing another person. That's what counts there. That he himself is a bad or good person doesn't make any difference. In reality, it should not be. Like if someone described the Prophet was like tall and this and so on, the one who described maybe a kafir. Is that I doesn't believe in him? Say, I met him in Medina. I did not believe in him, but he looks like that. His eyes like that. And this man may be a very good person in describing and giving you a picture, a verbal picture. That's all what we have. We have a verbal picture of Rasul, but no way you can know his appearance completely. Except it happened the time Anas of Malik and Basra, someone told him there's a guy, people claim he looks exactly like the Prophet. Anas was surprised, and he's from meet with the Prophet like after 6 and 7 grandfathers, which is reasonably pro. So Anas said, I went and started crying, say, as if I'm looking to the Messenger of Allah. So Anas knows how the Messenger of Allah say, and the people who know this man know how he looks. So if they have a dream with the Messenger of Allah with that shape, with that shirt, we can say that cannot be from the devil. Yes, cannot be from the devil. And the shaitan saw the surati. But the people after them, they claim, I saw the Messenger of Allah. And the Messenger of Allah say, a shaitan saw the surati. No. Let us all be surati, appeared exactly like my appearance. Do you know the appearance of the Messenger of Allah in detail? And they were And most of these dreams with the Messenger of Allah of them is the imagination of the guy or his subconscious talking. Besides the word we say, shaitan. So this dream which have the Messenger of Allah, even if interpreted widely according to the scripture in your mind and represented the Messenger of Allah, it cannot be from shaitan, so an evil dream, but it can be from your subconscious. So it's not an authority. Shaitan cannot be doing that, even for the one who don't. If we take the widest interpretation, when they say the shaitan لا يتصور بصورته فهي حق, then it is how you are talking to yourself, expressing what you feel deep inside, not necessarily from revelation or bishara, or you can base on that anything, not necessary. That's it. So that's only for the one who know how he really looks to say, this is the Messenger of Allah, I know him immediately. No.
Okay, I think that's good. Next question. Somebody's got it on the mic, far away.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Raj, everything good?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. So, please, Sheikh, I have like a long question for you. So, if I can start. So, I would like to understand the deeper meaning of Islam as a way of life. We are often taught that a person only enters Islam by sincerely pronouncing the Shahada.
Yeah, okay.
However,
That's entering. That's entering the Islam.
Yes, exactly. So, Sheikh, I just want like to like develop the question. So maybe you can like help me like understand like this tension I have like with this question. So, however, if Islam fundamentally means submission to Allah and living according to His guidance, why don't we say that someone who sincerely upholds values such as justice, compassion, helping those in need, and striving for truth is in some sense upon Islam, even if they do not possess the complete revelation?
I see your point.
Have not formally embraced Islam. So, Sheikh, if I can just continue so you can get my idea. So, for example, some historical figures such as, Socrates, Confucius, Buddha have been suggested by some Muslims as like possible prophets or righteous teachers. Although this is not like an established Islamic belief, if their teachings originally came from divine guidance but were later altered or became incomplete, just as Muslims believe happened with previous revelations, could it be that some people are still following remnants of an originally Islamic way of life without possessing the final revelation?
First of all, a method that entering Islam is by pronouncing Shahada sincerely from the heart. Entering, like a big house or palace, you're entering from the door. That's not enough, because you are entering now sincerely. You want to enter the house and put possession of it or live in it. That's it. So that answered part of the question. Now, in the case of Islam, Al-Islam as the religion revealed to Muhammad. Secondly, the issue is that these may be prophets and things like that, and etc. That's very well possible. And the people who discuss that, no, they're living in a pagan country, and it seems to be they are pagans and so on, from some of their writing, like Plato and so on. But for Socrates, there's nothing reported like that. So Socrates seems to be monotheist. Plato was using language which shows either maybe after the mishap of Aristocrates and forcing him to commit suicide or accept that he is misguided, and so on. Plato learned that reason, so he was appeasing the people by saying the gods and things like that. They really not believed on that. We don't know, because he also studied in Egypt under schools which are some of them originating before him 1 or 2 centuries from the Nabi alayhi Jeremiah. So he may be on that, but he couldn't pronounce it. So all of this is speculating about people following them on Tawheed are muwahhid, may possibly, yeah. When now that's when now the question is, if some people come and say, oh, they are kafir and they hellfire, then go stop. This is none of your business. That's, you cannot judge that. That's the point. The problem is that people regard that as automatically as kafir, automatically as a lying prophet. I would not conclude that as said, if he was a prophet, I would say that's the correct position. And in the discussion of Tabi'iyya immigration and so on, I responded to Imam one of Imam al-Hanafi. He was discussing the Majus and so on. They are mushrikeen and so on, and said, claim that they're people of the book and they have inherited the book and so on, because some people claim the special treatment of Jews, Christian, it applies to them, not to the other mushrikeen, because they want to run away from that their theory about that the mushrikeen has to be exterminated, which is a wrong theory. But he wants to answer it another way, because that's not the point of view of the Hanafi. And say this was Nabi Kadib. And so I said, I don't like calling someone we don't know about his life sufficient to call him Nabi Kadib. But the issue that the Majus are treated in certain, because the hadith said like the people of the book, except that they cannot marry their women and eat their slaughtering, etc., is an evidence that a part of that which are not regarded as people of the book, which is independent of the dualist or mushrikeen or not mushrikeen at the time of coming with Islam, is the treatment for all mushrikeen whatsoever. maybe the Mushrikeen of Arabia may have a special treatment, but this is extinct and doesn't exist anymore. So that's the way to escape the problem of Mushrikeen, that the hadith of jizya can be taken for them, and the Quran does not say jizya only for Buddha book. It doesn't say only. It say fight them until they pay the jizya, and is addressing to the Romans who are very hostile at that time. So it's not evidence for anything, but some people, their brain has stuck. When Allah says, fight the people of the book, because they don't believe Allah and their judgment, etc. They are hostile to Islam. Their belief in Allah is fake. Is not based on good evidence from Scripture, and it shows that it's not evidence. Is that they are hostile to Islam, which they have studied. They have noticed that it confirms what they have on truth, and clean that they have is falsehood, but they don't want. Anyway, it says fight them until they pay jizya, and they are being subdued and pay jizya. They concluded in their sick mind, many, majority of fuqaha, unfortunately, that the only those come. There's no only in the ayah. Secondly, just ask them the following question. Let's assume they say, oh, stop the fight, we embrace Islam, now finish. What are you to do? Reject that? The ayah does not mention until they embrace Islam or baby judge. So this is all murky conclusions in that direction. نأتي الآن in commenting on these people. If you wish to analyze it this way, fine. If you don't wish it, it's not fine. After the coming of Muhammad sallallahu, after his coming, advent, that's the Islam which Allah accept. But the condition for that, for other people to be condemned or not condemned, is that the one to be condemned receive the message sufficiently so that evidence is being manifest against him, and he rejects. Then he is the one candidate of punishment Yawm al-Qiyamah.
Sheikh, please, before
let me complete.
Yes.
That's the condition.
Yes.
He the messenger, and it is not just hearing there's a man called Muhammad. Receive sufficient information that he can be questioned Yawm al-Qiyamah and he cannot answer. قامت عليه الحجة. The divine argument is valid against him. And that's...
Sheikh,
let me complete. These are halikin. The others we don't know. Don't indulge in them. So the whole thing is messed up. So no need for this question in the first place, because people thought that unless you pronounce shahada and so on, and that's in the Islamic sense with the details of the Islamica, you are gone. No, the people in Amazon did not receive anything about Islam. Maybe that's better for them not to receive. We don't know. This way they escape in us. So the whole thing is messed up from the ground.
Sheikh, about this point that you just said, that's when we can say that someone is kafir, right?
No. I'm coming to that point. You are I'm coming to the point. Now, how to classify these people in matter of treatment of dunya, nikah, and so on? They are not Muslims. And if they are not people of the book, you are not allowed to marry their woman. That's simple. Etc. Other rulings. That's it. And the correct point of view, you are not allowed even to fight them unless they fight you. If they fight you, then you are responding to the fight by self-defense or by fighting. Although we know from the people we are fighting in the battlefield, some are maybe good believers, some even ignorant, some are idiots. We don't know what happened to them to Akhirah. But we treat them in the worldly context as people ending in the hellfire, as if they were. But that's not for us to make or to state. So calling them kafir, meaning in the legislation, in the zahir, in the apparent rulings of dunya, they appear to be not Muslim, embraced Islam as defined by the Quran. In the Deen Inda Allah Islam, in addressing the people in the book after the dispute of the Najrani with the Prophet, was clearly addressing them. Understand? In the Deen Inda Allah Islam is the only one accepted. The additional condition, but the one who did not enter Islam or not recorded as a Muslim, how to treat him in ahkam al-dunya? That's the treatment.
But Sheikh, in the word kafir, there is like a notion of hiding something, right?
No, not necessary. No. The word kafir is a classification. If you want to use the word non-Muslim, tfadal. Maybe it's not a good Arabic construct at the time, but you construct it now to clarify that. No problem. A non-Muslim is a kafir in the sense he is not in the Islam which known publicly in treatment of dunya. Is he real kafir in the sense سورة البينة لم يكن الذين كفروا من الكتاب المشركين مفكين حتى تأتيهم البينة رسول من الله يتلو صحفا مطهرة فيها كتب قيمة. But he says those who received the bayina and saw it and should have ended the dispute, they are kafir, and they say
Yes.
من أهل الكتاب والمشركين. So the mushrikeen are not kafir unless they have rejected the bayina. And this is the sense kafir in sense of آخرة. تعجب. وما تفرق الذين أوتوا الكتاب بعد ما جاءتهم البينة. The dispute and splitting is after they receive the evidences. And then he says إن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين في نار جهنم خالدين فيها. These the real kuffar for the true treatment of آخرة, not the treatment of dunya. In treatment of dunya, one be a real kafir in his heart, does not believe in the existence of Allah, but he living with Muslim and having a Muslim name, and never proves out that in such a way that someone could apply to the court to dissolve his marriage and all these things. But in Akhirah, he's forsaken, although he's Muslim nominally. So you have to get all these things together. Many fuqaha did not do it, unfortunately, and many people sitting on chairs and thinking they have the keys of paradise and Jahannam. You don't have anything. You have to shut up if it comes to paradise and Jannah, except if you have irrefutable evidence for Allah that this specific person or this specific category are people of Jannah. There was nothing about certain categories. It's of certain people, except maybe Al-Safiqin Awwalin and the people of Badr on evidences from Quran and Sunnah with necessity. That's it. And the prophets and so on. And the people who have been promised Jannah and said people of Jannah and narrated from Messenger of Allah. That's it. Otherwise, we don't know at all. That's the solution of the problem. The issue kafir and Muslim, you have to distinguish between kafir in ahkam al-dunya or openly non-Muslim, which you can kafir in ahkam al-dunya, and you apply the ruling of the kafir. You are not, if you want to get to marry a woman from the Amazon, are you going to study the whole issue of Hujjah came to them? No, they are not Muslims formally. They are not allowed to do the marriage. I would say this is very rare, but that's the situation.
Yeah, Sheikh, I'm not asking like for like some legislation. Like
no. I understand you are saying about the essence. The essence is not in our hand. It's clear by the Quran.
Philosophical like question, more like philosophical.
The essence. After coming of Islam, only the one who got the message from the messenger, accepted sincerely, entered Islam, is a Muslim. Anyone else who rejected the message after the evidence has come to him is a kafir in hukm al-akhirah. It doesn't matter if he was before that following an extinct religion or a true religion. Even if he following Musa, even without any deviation, which was not the case at the time with the Jews, or following Isa with them, because the one of Isa not believing he is divine, all of them embraced Islam essentially. Nobody remained. Immediately, right away.
Also, is it worth mentioning, when you mention, for example, somebody does some good deeds, if a person is doing deeds for that entirely wrong motivation, because what if I was to do salah,
leave the motivation now. Make good deeds to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on a false religion, but he did not receive the message, that will be recorded.
Yeah. But in the original framing of the question, he was describing people who do all the actions of Muslims. If the message has reached them and they still persist on doing these actions without believing,
that's done. Okay. But that is before the message even. Okay. All is in Allah records. Nothing is lost. Everything is recorded, and He will balance the books Yawm al-Qiyamah, and He has the keys of Jannah and Paradise. Just say that. So the old question: what happened with the people of Amazon? Say, shut up. You think you can know more than Allah knows? Leave them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at least. Leave them. We know the condition for perishing with certainty, and even we don't know if a specific person or he is one of the forsaken perishing one, because even the public affair. But we know in the public affair that he did not embrace Islam. He does have the title Muslim, and if he's not belonging nominally, even the people of the book, for example, someone was arguing about the slaughter of the mushrikeen and so on. They want to save their point of view. People of subcontinent are obsessed with the slaughtering and so on. Say, but they are not real Christian. Many of them are atheists or cultural Christians. Say what he calls himself. Is he call himself Christian? That's what counts. You can apply, if a Muslim, you cannot check. If the one doing slaughtering in the slaughter, are you sure that all in the slaughtering also some in Turkey, that all of them are Muslims really? there will be a fraction of them who are Turani and they are kafir with this. And they claim they are Muslim. Genuinely kafir, most likely destined for the hellfire. Does mean the slaughtering is invalid? Or you're supposed to open your heart so I can check if you are a proper slaughterer? Distinguish between ahkam al-dunya and al-akhirah.
Yes.
In ahkam al-akhirah, leave it to the one who have the keys.
Sheikh, maybe I have like a perfect example just so we go like deep in like the matter of the question. For example, if some Bedouin Arab like in the time just received like, for example, the instruction to stop like killing the daughters, you know, the newborns, like daughters, and he accepted that, you know, because he like his heart like was like ready for this.
Assuming that, yeah. But what's his
not,
position? What's his position for with the messenger of Allah? Did he reach that with the messenger? Is before the messenger? Maybe
he didn't hear about him, Sheikh. But this part of Islam, he accepted it. You know, that's what I mean. It's just.
I already discussed that, brother. You are branching now in question, which is the same satanic trap. If he met the messenger and got the message, and just comply with that, say I reject the rest, he's a kafir. Because the message came under authority. He should first accept the messenger.
But if he did not like meet him, but just like met maybe just some parts of the message.
It's clear you are answering yourself. If he did not meet him, then all that does not apply.
Okay.
Then we don't need to ask about what happens to him. Allah is keeping a record. Anyone asking, open discussion, you tell him, stop here, you are not authority to talk about that. That's not in your hand. Yeah, that's the answer. The answer is very clear. All good deeds, if they are really good deeds, are recorded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all bad deeds, which are really bad deeds, are recorded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't worry about that. And leave the one who has the absolute record and absolute knowledge, judge the situation. Don't put your nose in an affair which is none of your. As usual, if put your nose in something which is not affair, you may get your nose smashed. And you have to blame yourself. And the devil wants you to get in that.
Sheikh,
by all kinds of arguments.
Yes, I'm asking this question because, you know, Sheikh, I find like a certain tension in the Quran.
There's no tension in the Quran if you read it carefully. I just mentioned you the ayahs of Surah Al-Bayyinah and so on. The Quran mentioned usually that because from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you mentioned the standard type.
Sheikh, I meant like for me, you know, so I'm still trying like to learn and like to
you have to read comprehensively. For example, about those who left Medina, broke their hijrah, which the Quran called them munafiqeen, and rebuke the Sahaba that disputed about them. I say clearly, وَدُّوا لَوْ تَكْفُرُونَ كَمَا كَفَرُوا. They wish that you would commit kufr like they did, because their act is act of kufr. Yeah? But later on, he discussed their situation in dunya, and wherever you meet them, because they joined the Harbi domain of Quraysh, kill them everywhere, like any Quraysh. But they still know, say, are Muslim and make them is irrelevant. And then he come to a category who are abstained from fighting and went aside, say, we just broke our immigration because we could not forsake our families, whatever excuses, leave that to Allah. But for matter of fighting in dunya, Allah did give authority against them. Don't touch them. With the same, he testified they are kafir. You have to read all of that to get the correct idea. I gave you the summary. So you're getting stuck in the same point. You want to dictate Allah what to do with the people Yawm al-Qiyamah. Get out of this mentality. All that we can say from the principle, Surah Al-Bayyinah is a clarification of that, conclusive. The dispute between these people and so on, Mushrikeen Ahl Kitab, should have been resolved by when the authority, the Bayyinah, the evidence came to them. Rasulun min Allah yatlu suhfan mutahhar. That messenger has come and reading this scripture. But they saw that, they studied the scripture, they tried to attack it and so on. That's the reality of those. These are the one who insisted, and they're still disputing, because the solution of dispute would have been accepting the messenger after being persuaded and convinced by the argument. But they did not do it. And then he comments after this category with this specific specification, they in nar jahannam khalidina fiha. Is XY person, Socrates and so on, one of these or not? Definitely is one, because he don't receive a messenger and book which resist across. But still, maybe he accepted the books, the deformed books in the hand of the Jews and Christian, because the issue of Tawheed and worship Allah is clear there. There's no issue of that. He accepted that's enough for his time. We don't know. Leave the detail to Allah. That's it. In time of Messiah and onward until the end of time, the only question is the person received Hada. Theoretically, we say if he has received it and understood it and rejected it, he's a kafir in dunya and akhirah, and his destination will be like that. But is this individual person or this group really from this type, of this prototype mentioned in the Quran? Only Allah knows even the detail of persons. But generally, we come from the old circumstances, we conclude, yeah, this one received the message and rejected it out of arrogance or out of unwillingness to change the way of life, and unwillingness to enslave himself to Allah probably, or whatever, that we don't go into details. That's in Allah's record, he will be punished. But in principle, we can't say that. In principle, you have to say that, because Allah said it clearly. Those have received, so that got a messenger who is reading purified books, check the book for verification, like we check the Quran now, and the messenger for characters and so on, and historicity, all of these things. And after that, say, if I accept that, I might forsake my old religion. I'm too lazy. I'm not going to do that. Meaning, belief and disbelief is for him a secondary issue. Allah is a secondary. But Iman is necessarily based on Allah is the fundamental and necessary and the central issue. If Allah is a secondary issue, you are mushrik, you are out. You have not fulfilled the reason of your creation, to enslave yourself to Allah. And this, the first step for that is to know Allah is the ultimate sovereign. If that's not there, then everything will be futile anyway in its reality. But who is like that exactly, we don't know. But the general principle, we stress. A certain person in dunya, we are not concerned about that. We should not say this one is going to hellfire or not going to hellfire.
Of course not, Sheikh. Of course not.
But this situation you have to, if it is like someone's your relative, and you know that he does not pray, even sometimes I know about certain people, not in my family, but someone told you about a friend of his. He is the Imam Masjid in Quran Muraz. His brother is Quran Muraz, but he's an atheist. When poor first guy goes to Hajj in Ramadan for Umrah, this one leads because he's a memorizer, and also in the Madhab al-Hanbali, and that it should be the correct point of view that you can read from the Quran to support yourself. And he told my friend in school in ancient time, 50 years, 60 years ago, told him jokingly, my brother put me there and show the kind of his twisted mind and psychology this man has, the atheist one. He says, when he is about to go, obviously he's forced, he has to pretend to lead the Jama'ah. He deliberately go and break his wudu, whatever. He has never any wudu anyway. Go to the loo deliberately. Does not make wudu deliberately and lead the Jama'ah. If you know that, then if a brother has come to know that, his brother love should not supersede the fact he knows. This man is almost certainly going to hellfire. I cannot make istighfar. ما كان للنبي والذين آمنوا يستغفروا للمشركين من بعد ما تبين لهم. They saw the evidence that the people of the hellfire. You see my point? After that, you are not allowed to make istighfar. For this specific person, if you have the certainty in your heart that everything applies to him, maybe your certainty is not 100% correct. Leave that to Allah. He will know. But the fact that your alliances to Allah in the first point makes you abstain from making istighfar for such a person. But this is connected with allegiance and declaration of faith, not that confirming that your bayina is enough for them to go really in the hellfire. Leave that to Allah. With highest probability or certainty, they will go. But that's not the issue. In the moment you know, then you have to have a separation with them. And the minimum expression of separation is what? Not making istighfar for them. ما كان. In the case of Ibrahim, he did not learn this point yet for a long time and was doing istighfar for his father. But Allah told him, this is an enemy of Allah. He will never recover. Then he stopped and separated from himself. So take Ibrahim as an uswa in that case. But Ibrahim did not know earlier. Earlier, because he's as a good son, pious son, is kind for his father. And he hoped maybe some kind of forgiveness to come somewhere. Allah told him, فَلَمَّا عَلِمَ أَنَّهُ has knowledge, absolute certainty, most likely based on revelation, أنه عدو لله, his enemy Allah will never recover. تبرع من say, I have nothing to do with him. I'm not even doing istighfar for him. So it's a matter of disassociating with the kafir in principle. Not whether that your istighfar is relevant or relevant. The minimum disassociation, even for the beloved parents and so on, Allah forbid that anyone of us in this situation, is not to make istighfar. Keep your mouth shut. Allah doesn't require to condemn him. Oh, he was a kafir, la'atullah alayh. No, you don't need for that. But don't do istighfar. If you are convinced in your heart, try to avoid. And this is easy. Even if you are in a gathering with a family who do not know or something like that. We don't need to Allah. Just skip it. Be a good tactician how to deal with the society. If you get out of that, so the picture become clear. It should not be confusing for you, brother. It shouldn't. But because it has not been collected all information, and the fuqaha blundered here or left or center, we ended in this situation. And the worst in that are the Wahhabi. They say shirk is damning to hellfire, even if the guy is ignorant. Say, nobody can be ignorant about shirk. There's no excuse of ignorance. And they, in Medina, before I left in the early 90s, someone told me, you have no idea what's going on in Medina. Say, what's going on? Say the Madkhali and Jami and Wahhabi are spread in 10 groups, each one declaring kufr of the other. What is the issue? What's the problem with them? Does kufr say? Is al-udhr bil-jahl, is excuse because of ignorance valid or invalid? That's what happens from that. When you have people who are brain dead or twisted brain.
Yeah, they are sick, Sheikh. They are sick.
Yeah. Sick because they think they have the keys of paradise. You don't have. Neither you nor myself. And even until mid-time of Medina, after Ahzab, the Prophet did not know that he is saved. And anyone is mubashar of Jannah, and definitely. He does not know. Evidence, when Uthman ibn Mad'un died, passed away, he's the uncle, the mother side uncle, the Khad of Abdullah ibn Umar, because the mother of Abdullah is from al-Mad'un, sister of Uthman ibn Mad'un. When he's the brother in milk with the Prophet ﷺ, a woman said, prayed for him and said, Shahadati, my witness for you that Allah give you nobility and you are in paradise. He said, sir, how do you know that Allah give him nobility? Say, Messenger of Allah, he's your brother and he is your father. He was one of the Fursan. He's your fighter. He's your Faris, the one fight on horseback. Say, Wallahi, I'm not like anything like that. But well, I don't know what will happen with me and you until that moment. So we have an evidence for that. After that, later on, he testified that the people who witnessed Badr will be forgiven. Allah will forgive them necessarily. And whatever mechanism, I'll be discussing that in our writing about the Sahaba. That's number one. And also, Sabiqi al-Awwalin, Quran says clearly, the Messenger of Allah, Sabiqi al-Awwalin, the time when the ayah came down, who persisted in Islam, they are the people of the paradise. And the one who followed them with good deeds, they are also destined for the paradise, but there's no guarantee because we know for the other ones, they have no isma from committing kufr. For the previous one, they are already sealed, recorded in paradise. Finish. So Allah obliged himself that even if they commit a sin, he either guide you and force them to tawbah or cause them to die in shahada as a which compensate for deeds, etc., etc. There are various mechanisms in the hand of Allah Ta'ala to get them because they are given paradise. Final promise, no way to step back from it. But the other one, in the general principle, those already done and enter the book, finish, over. But those تبعون بإحسان, some people say, oh, the تبعون بإحسان. تبعون بإحسان apply for until يوم القيامة with the general condition. There's no ridda before death. But if there's a ridda, it is not تبع بإحسان. If you conclude your life with ridda, عياذ بالله, you are not following the messenger and the saved one with إحسان. You finish your ihsan and destroyed it at the time which you still have the capability of doing more ihsan or doing evil. You did the biggest evil by Ridda, and you finish yourself. Cross yourself from record. It's still open. But those are sealed. That's the way to understand things. Otherwise, we'll get waver until Yawm al-Qiyamah in nothing.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Brother Omar, fire away.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh and Brother Rash. So I wanted to ask a question regarding logic and our Islamic sort of understanding or positions. I've listened to a few different speakers, on the topic, and they often say that God can't do what is logically impossible, such as creating another God and like the bolder example.
Yeah, they said
and so on.
because the power of doing things, the great things, is relate only to the contingent. The necessary cannot be created because the definition of necessary is not creatable.
Yeah.
The impossible cannot be turned possible because the definition of the impossible is that it cannot be realized neither in past nor now nor in eternities.
Right. So I think, as you're saying then, and as they say, because logical contradictions are not genuine possibilities, right? So my question is, what's the status of logic itself? Is it something that's created by God? Is it an eternal reality independent of God? Or is it an expression
No, it's not independent of God because in eternity...
Sorry, Sheikh, just the last sentence, sorry, Sheikh. Or is it an expression of God's own necessary nature?
That's it. It's, in eternity, there was nothing except كان الله ولم يكن شيء معه أو قبله أو عنده. And he's all the truth and all necessity there. And now what you express it, any expression will not be satisfactory. But the last one you said, expression of God's own necessity and being, that's correct. Because he's that truth. Is that truth. And Allah هو الحق المبين.
Okay, can I ask a follow-up question then? Yeah.
But it's a philosophical question, I think it's futile. So, but this description is good. Someone could say embodying all truth and so on. I would not like the word embody, but I understand the people what they mean.
Yeah, like
as expression of his own necessary existing and being.
So if logic is grounded in God's necessary nature, then how do we understand that basically? Is it correct to say that these logical necessities are simply what God eternally is?
Essentially, now we go into details which we cannot comprehend.
Eternal to even God, okay. Yeah, but okay, this is my
you can use expression like embodying all necessity and all rationality. He is all the rationality. He is al-haq, he is the truth himself. All these expressions, none will give really full evaluation of the matter.
Okay, so that was just for me to clarify the position a bit, in terms of my understanding. Just my sort of last question here then, what I've wrote down anyway. So, and this is what I'm kind of confused on, to be honest with you a bit, So, from what I understand, we believe that human reason, even without revelation, can discover certain truths about God. For example, that sorry, Sheikh. For example, that God can't do what is. Sorry, Sheikh. Can I just forgive me, just so I can otherwise I'll get mixed up myself. For example, that God cannot do what is logically contradictory. So my question is,
cannot do. It doesn't relate to that. They're saying that God makes a contradiction possible, is meaning God is not the truth. It's self-contradictory.
Okay, just the last.
So how to express it is very important. So that's not a matter of that future events, which based on his choices, absolute free choices, or creation, who gave them free choice, even if it's limited in a certain circle of a certain diameter, that they cannot be because they don't exist. That's impossible to know as how they emerge. What is for him is not the various probabilities. That's the problem with future events and the problem of qada.
Yeah, okay, got you. So, my just last sort of question here is, if our reasoning is that of finite human beings, living within a created universe, how can we be confident that these principles also apply to God's own mode of existence?
That's the question. Let me tell you.
Sorry, Sheikh. I
know. You are going to the question before the beginning. The beginning, we perceive these as necessities.
Yeah.
and they detect that the universe around that because of this necessity. There's another alternative, is that they are not necessary and they are a delusion. So we are in a reality which is rational, which is magic.
Right.
A choice.
Well,
that's a choice for time.
yeah.
That's a choice. Go with me step by step. Don't go to start with the beginning with the finite.
Okay, yeah.
If you follow the first line, we end that this universe is contingent and must start with the necessary existing being, which by necessity will be that. And because God is the truth, his creation, what the creation perceive as a rationality, must be a subset or like a finite prediction of his rationality. And he is not a liar, he's not a cheater, he's not an initial deceiver. He may deceive the one who tried to deceive him, yes, as a retaliation. Otherwise, he doesn't initiate that, contradict the divine truthfulness and the divine holiness. So then we have gained trust with our that what we perceive must be by itself really, even if it's in a limited way, because we don't have the ability to comprehend the infinity and get it inside our mind. We only finite and expand little by bit. That is truthful. We trust because of that. The other option is excluded now. Otherwise, we start with the other option, and there's no reason, and then we have the choices between our rationality limited, but regarded as correct, or irrationality and being mentally deranged. So you start with that. You start with the two options, and then tell yourself, make your choice. The other choice is completely irrational, completely magic. Nothing make any sense. Okay. If you can live with that, welcome. Go there.
Okay, so are you saying that
you start from here, from finite you perceive, and go both ways? The other way is magic. Nothing can be asserted. If it's magic, if contradiction are possible and not genuinely in themselves a reflection, independent of their reflection of divine or not, if they're genuinely just a setting of the finite mind, then everything can go. That I could exist or not exist at the same time. You may be talking to me now. I'm talking to myself. It doesn't anything goes. That's called the magic.
Okay, but just the last point I had here was, how do we know that we are discovering truths about God Himself rather than only discovering?
Because we reject. No,
rather than only describing the structure of the created world.
No, you are going to the end before the beginning. We started with that. We have these rational principles, especially the principle of contradiction. We regard them as fundamental and absolute in some sense. We regard them. If that's true, then we go through the line and end with the beginning of the universe and the beginning of reality in Azal. And then we identify by necessity that's from him and relate to him. And the other way, we end nowhere. Make your choice. There's a fundamental choice at the beginning.
Okay, so it's really just...
You see how it works?
It's just a faith that God wouldn't create something that would universe that
that's by necessity. If it's there, but if that's what we start with, the possibility of contradiction is absolute in some sense or another, we have to go the details of it. What is it? Then we end with a God by necessity, then embodying or incorporating or expressing all truths, and then it is impossible for the all truth to create from the beginning without being responding to the action, because there was nothing else to action to create a faulty reason. Why he should create a faulty reason? Only if he is deficient.
It's not that it's necessarily faulty, but it could be a reflection of our faulty or like
no, it can't be because
undefined. Unrefined faculties.
Then you have started the wrong way. Then accept the mental derangement as the real state of affairs. Then it doesn't matter. Is there a God or no God? Both are possible. There is no other way. At the beginning, there's a choice. Choose the first one, then terminate. We stop there. No need to talk. No need to discuss anything. If you choose the other one, make the assumption, fundamental assumption, we go all the way to the beginning of the universe by necessity, by the complex chain of conclusions. It can be as complex as possible, but it can be done. And what's the attributes of this existing being? And then it turns out it's fit synchronization. That explains also the problem is that why what we internally first start mathematics say, which we have at least a finite mathematics is present in our mind. Why this when it applies to nature it works? And how to solve this apparent problem? The solution is that it applies because both are coming from the same source.
So there's a level of faith in the
It's a
human
beginning
faculty
point.
required, yeah.
It shows this on this, not faith. No.
But it's all kind of based on a bit of an assumption then, just a small assumption at the start.
Yeah,
maybe.
that's it. You have the choice there.
Whether to assume
You
or
have the
not,
choice. When you start the correct point, start in the finite, which we have under control.
Yeah, but we can't necessarily prove that we don't necessarily have.
No.
You know,
the other approach,
proof of
if you
the
choose the
start,
other approach, nothing can be proven.
Yeah.
It's a magic word. If you like that, go.
We're all living in Elon Musk.
But in the interaction with the environment which we feel, there will many evidence to show you that you are wrong. And someone can challenge you, okay, if there's no difference between life and death, commit suicide now. Let's see where you end. Do you dare that? You don't dare doing that because you're still doubting that this choice is correct. Where the doubt comes from, there must be some reasoning for it. If you are really convinced about that the universe is what they call the reality or the universe is magic.
Well, they would probably say it's human nature and part of evolution.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But if the world isn't real, then there's no
It
evolution.
doesn't matter. Evolution contradicts that. Look at the animals, how they live.
If it's
They could not have survived if the animal behavior is completely irrational like that. Their intrinsic built irrationality. Now they claim nature obviously is something like necessary existing and so on. Or these concepts do not make any meaning. Then science does not make any meaning. They say everything is necessarily existing, nature somehow is existing, and self or the universe created itself. This is nonsense. If we accept as nonsense, then we can say it did not create itself. Someone else created him. Both are possible. Now, observation indicate nothing. All of the observation indicate that. And then who said that observation corresponds to the reality correctly in a magic world? There was an assumption that something had correspondence. And then science and technology as false. But we see they are work. So it ends you in a nightmare of contradiction. Complete, what I call a state of complete madness. A reality is supposed to be magic. Magic meaning the principle of contradiction does not apply. Suddenly, when the illusionist bring a rabbit out of his hat, it's truly bringing out of nothing. There's no rabbit hidden there, and him benefiting from the stage and the lighting and so on, and some hole in the and using it. We know it says he's using that. No, it doesn't need. It's really getting out of. How is he getting it? He's uttering certain mantra. How can the mantra have this effect? We said there's no connection with cause and effect. No necessity whatsoever. And then what the Hindus are saying is make good sense. You can make mantras and force the gods to do whatever. And they can comply and trick you and so on, like the story of the satanic Jamus, buffalo. I mentioned that in the book of Tawheed just for fun.
Also, the use of the word faith. I mean, maths, science is not based on faith. I mean, it's based on looking what's around us. We both agree on a certain.
But the faith is that what I look around exists and is there.
Yeah, but I won't say that. I won't say that even the most stringent of sciences
that can be only that can be a certainty if you accept the principle that contradiction is absolute. It is hidden, and everyone does that. The others we call mentally deranged and sick. But that is also an option. That reminds me of a story, funny story that someone.
Just to look, if we are the repository that looking at the outside world, and we see it entirely.
We discussed that Dash here. Starting with the absolute 0 point, you have to make this either this or this. The other one is impossible to live with, and if you want to live with it, salama, bye, no problem.
There will never be a cause or effect. You could.
No cause and effect, nothing.
Yeah. You could stab someone, and so the police say to the police, "Hopefully, argue your case." No, I didn't do it. It just happened
that's exactly what some mental derangement say that. God talks to me. What's your evidence? He talked to me. That's what mentally people do. And that's the reason, the following joke I was going to say. Someone visited someone in the mental institution, and when he was going to exit, there was a banner saying, beware going behind this door. There are only mental people there, mentally deranged people. So the question, the people inside believe that they are the rational people, and the one outside are the mental people. Possibly the writing is from them or from the administration of the institution, saying instead of having a guard all the time at the door, this banner will be enough to keep these idiots inside. Whatever the situation, they think they can speak about that. Now, how to find out which choice seems to be the most reasonable and probable for me, because I perceive by necessity that I exist. When I start these, and they have a choice and free will to choose one of these two. So that's, I must assume that it's there somehow. And that's contradict that the universe is the reality is magic.
Yeah,
You could say that. So this balances the world. It's not an absolute. Until you assume my perception of myself is absolute,
Yeah.
a
Okay.
delusion could not be deluded itself. Delusion, the delusion, infinite regress. That's the starting point. And no rational person will disagree with you. So all rationality agree. So we call the others the irrational one, the mentally deranged.
Okay. Yeah.
With
I think
the legitimate choice. But I don't like going to such deep things which go to the absolute zero. But it's the absolute zero.
I think probably because of maybe the weakness of my question, but there's a slight thing I think being missed. I'm not questioning whether the world that we live in is unstructured or illogical.
خلاص, then you
what
close the circle.
what I'm saying is this logic and so on that we derive from the
Then we
universe,
close the
because-
circle from up there. Then we
Well,
have to prove that the system being there.
Yeah, I'm saying we then apply some form of what we have discovered, to God, i.e., the logic we then apply it to God and say God can't create another God. And
getting there. We're starting with the absolute recognition that my necessity, I do exist necessarily. There's something called existence, something called free will, and that the contradiction are impossible to join. This is the starting point. And without that, we have the magic word. With this, we develop step by step in a consistent way, all the way to the initially existing absolute being. And he originated everything else. And then from there, then we close the circle in a consistent way. Everything becomes consistent. It needs to already technical develops. I have a technical development. Wait until we edit the book of Tawheed or publish it separately. That's it. So the claim there's some kind of faith, no, it's not in that case, in that sense, but I explain. But impossible to start otherwise.
Okay, I'll leave it there for the sake of time. Yeah, but I appreciate your
That's
time.
it. Think about it. If you find another solution, get it to me.
Well, the only bit I'm stuck on a little bit is that I still feel I'll listen back to this maybe, but I feel like we are applying this logic that we've sort of unraveled. That God is.
It's not unraveled. I feel that it's necessary.
No, that necessarily exists.
Absolute, extending to all possible reality, and then we study a little bit on that and see if that become consistent internally or not.
But having certainty that it applies beyond the universe,
what's beyond the universe?
As in, to God, I guess.
No, we have certainty because start with that and we ended with that. We and by necessity, because we're starting with the finite step by step and went to the limit in a correct way. That's the point you are missing. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to have a listen back.
That's the way to go.
You might find something in.
If you do it in a structured way, you see it. It's dictated by necessity.
There's some Kalam videos that might be helpful. Also, Muhammad Hijab's, he's done his PhD.
I don't think he will go that deep anyway. No, but let me finish the writing and then we'll put it on tape.
Your work on, there's some videos that were done on principle of sufficient reason. Did they cover that? There were some English videos.
But there's a sufficient reason is a principle first.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, if you say that may have been influenced by nature or something like that, is not absolute in itself, meaning it may be not absolute, and then everything goes. it may be false. خلاص.
Because look, the assumption ultimately you would use this example yourself.
It's self-defeating and ending the choice, which is not a choice really, of a magic universe and complete mental derangement.
No,
You also-
there's no magic universe being implied. I think that's where the slight confusion is. I'm just saying, and I'll stop at the end of this because I appreciate you guys' time and people listening and so on. How do we know that the necessity we discover through finite reasoning is genuinely a necessity?
It's
about
not
God
discovered. It's
himself?
part of the building of the reason. You feel it immediately. There's nothing beyond that.
But we,
Discover.
okay, it's inbuilt in what is created by God, but we discover it.
We
by our
rediscovered
senses.
later. Then we close the circle.
Sure, but
Distantly.
what I'm saying is, how do we know that this reasoning is genuinely a necessity about God Himself, rather than only about the structure of
All
creation,
that
which
make
He
it
created?
we're saying it is not. It's possibly not. And then we end with the universe, which is internally contradictory, never ending anywhere.
I
Why
should propose-
would the universe be internally contradictory when we're saying that these
Because,
principles apply to the universe?
that you must conclude then my feeling of being in existence and this is a necessity is itself is false. While it's being true, no, it is false. It's true, it's false. That's it.
No, I don't think so, because then I'm
Think
not
about
questioning
it.
whether it.
Brother,
I'm not
brother,
questioning
brother.
whether it applies to the
Brothers,
universe. I'm
think
talking
about it
God.
and write it in paper, do the steps. You'll see
Okay.
how it ends. There's the other, only the other alternative.
You might have to commission me, Rash, or something like that. You know, it
yeah.
takes some time to get.
You have
through
to
there.
sit and
Yeah,
analyze
you-
it
you-
step
you
by
don't mind.
step, not just
If you-
hand-waving argument of the atheist.
if
that
you
comes
like,
from the evolution.
if
How
you
do
like,
you know if it says coming from evolution is not necessarily with some absolute necessity out there. That's what they mean. Okay, fine. Then show us that we can trust what you have produced. No way.
I'll have a think, Sheikh. Yeah.
A scientist will
want-
tell you, for example, that's because of evolution. I say, what's evolution? You yourself do not exist for me. It's the illusion of myself.
But I think
That's it.
you're talking about the created universe. I'm talking about.
I'm talking
like
about is that an absolute in some sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, that's it. Or
Okay, I
not.
think-
If not, then we have the two choices. We have the only way. Otherwise, it is not absolute. It is then it's a base of evolution or base of something else we don't know. But if someone comes and says propose evolution, I don't accept your proposition because all your research is based on a delusion. Because all his research is based on principles of sufficiency and so on, but they are all not absolute. So maybe you're wrong ultimately.
And by absolute, are you saying, is this the link between God's necessary
It
being?
will then close the consistency. The other one never closes.
When
Fine.
you say absolute, that's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Right. Okay.
It will close consistently. At the beginning, we say that's what we perceive, and we think it's absolute, connect somehow to an absolute reality. The other said there's no absolute reality. Say, okay, fine. You claim it's not absolute, but how do you feel that? Say by evolution. How do you know evolution? We did experiment. How did you conclude that from the experiment? You use the principle of causality. This is the reason that observation corresponds to reality. But I'm denying all of that because that's not based on an absolute certainty. It's just guesswork. So guesswork based on guesswork, going guesswork never closes. If you're lucky with, if you're happy with that, fine. But you have to admit it's like that. Not come with the scientific research to claim otherwise. No. So all scientific and sense experience presets before that these things are absolute. If we want to take them serious, otherwise we cannot take anything serious. We even come to take the language in serious. We cannot take the development of language as any serious. But a real feeling of overwhelming majority of humans is that these reflect realities as it is, and we concluded from the experimentation that it's a reality. And you feel this is binding and compelling. And there is assumption. And the other assumption is nothing binding or compelling. There's still a probability. Like Hume, when we said, the principle of causality is just human perception. He tried to say they wouldn't, but even there, he did not dare go to the principle. He said, if we see, at the time, there was no cars. If they see a carriage or pulled with horse, suddenly emerging from nowhere, then we think there must be some source for that and so on. But assuming it's emerged from nowhere without any initiation or something does not create a contradiction. In that sense, he is also lying, because it creates a contradiction. Because there will be a certain exact time or moment where this carriage, this horse pulled carriage exists and does exist at the same time. The sudden emergence. There's no way. So there's one point in time where there's a contradiction. You don't need postulate the independent principle of causality and principle of sufficient reason. There is a contradiction. So ultimately, he's allowing contradiction. But he doesn't allow. He say does not consider contradiction. So the principle of causality is an independent from the basic rationality, which is the impossibility of contradiction. I think he can get away with that. And he succeeded in confusing people. I think Kant was also a bit confused by this point. He did not see the trick, the mischief of Hume. But go to Hume and his argument about this courage and read it carefully. He phrased it such a way that he can get away with it. Because all Hume is, for some reason, we don't know about his youth and life, became an atheist. And he's adamant of denying anything which can prove the existence of God. Because if you accept that nothing can emerge from nothing without a doer, even if one behind the veil, then you got away with God. Get rid of this God as you don't like. And he made the trick, but say, I'm not to fight evaluating rationality. There's no contradiction there. No, there's contradiction, my dear. In that example specifically. Now, in other causal phases, maybe it's a human delusion, but in this one specifically, and that's the reason you find now, I see many videos, they talk, say, when at the Big Bang, when the universe created itself. It's utter nonsense. Essentially, the human fallacy. Yes, it's not possible. So it has to exist and not exist at the same time. It violates the principle of contradiction. You cannot escape from that. So Hume did not dare even go into a magic word.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
So anyway, work on it more. Don't be taken a ride by just waving hand-waving arguments. Go step by step and take a pen and try to go through this.
Okay, I will do. Thank you for that, Sheikh. Yeah.
And be cautious about linguistic fallacies.
Okay.
Linguistic fallacies, like for example, when I was discussing with our friends in Germany when I was in German, we say the major question of philosophy is the following: how come that there is something which is not nothing? But this is a fallacy, because something which is not a nothing, it does not exist. It's an impossibility. So there will be always some kind of existence. The question: this existence is self-sufficient by itself, or it refers to another being? But there will be another being always. There's no way. And that relation, what is this another being? Is it a God, or it is a nature? And then you have to prove that nature it cannot be necessarily existing, and all these things. That is more details. But they always, for eternity, whatever definition of time you give, there's some existence. The basic situation exists. Non-existence is not there. It's nothing. It's nonsense. It's a linguistic fallacy. Language is deceiving you, and we know examples of linguistic fallacies. We know examples of linguistic fallacies, both in statement form and in describing an item by pointing to it. And they give the very simple example, the square circle. It's linguistically sound. What's the problem with that? The square, which is a circle. It sounds like a solid statement. It's nonsense. You don't need to talk about truth or falsehood of that. Does it make?
Yeah. Okay. Jazakallah, Sheikh and Rashid. I'll try and I'll have a listen back.
Listen to that and
try
then
and follow up
try to see what the other people said and so on.
Yeah.
Also, you might find it. Berhat might be a good person to ask as well. I can get you in touch with him. He's quite good on his philosophy side. There's Iqbal, can you let Edward come on now? Just he's been waiting quite patiently, and then you can talk after that. Yeah, is that all right?
Okay.
Fire away, Edward.
Assalamualaikum. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. One of them is very common in like West Africa, etc. For a non-Muslim, so for a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man, have a Christian, etc. Just wanted to ask if that's permissible.
Well, let's leave that, because the complex issue there, because a Muslim man is allowed to marry a non-Muslim woman, like Christian and Jew. Is the opposite allowed? The dispute between scholars in time past, very little dispute, because they argued with certain general arguments, which some of them are questionable. Recently, Al-Turabi argued for that as possible, and I did not read his argument. Leave this question. Besides, this does not affect theory. It's not a major issue to be affected, but it has to be discussed one day. And
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Another question I had is, I remember one point of usul you made. You said, I think somebody said one time that all commands are immediately wajib, and you said that that's not necessarily the case. There could be desirability.
Yeah, this is a discussion on usul. I think some of it is in the chapter 3, and some need to be discussed in the usul generally. They argue that the basic initial meaning of not command of the form if'al, do, this form, the linguistic form, do, and the other don't do. And the main argument is that do is the standard form of command.
Okay.
That's their guesswork about command. To command in Arabic, or the amr in Arabic, means very many things. One of it means advice. One of it means state of affairs. So the linguistic scholar said sigat al-amr, that's a sigha, that's their convention, has that to do with the amr as mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. Yeah. So the asynchronicity fooled many people. That's it. The question which come with do, which is linguistically, according to the people of language, called the form of command or form of amr. Is it for obligation or what? From just the naming of it, how it is irrelevant. Now we have to see how it is in the Quran and Sunnah, and how it says the necessity of language. It is just asking the other one to do this fact. It doesn't entail by necessity of reason and language that if you don't do it, I'm going to punish you. That's the meaning of it's wajib. Doesn't entail. Now claiming that attributing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is meaning that usually say if a master commands his slave and so on, the slave does not do, he become angry. But the relationship with Allah subhanahu has created no master and slave only. He's the supreme master. The human commander is obviously not going to give advice to a slave. Say, cook me food, do, cook. He wants food, he needs food. Allah's commands does not indicate any need from his side. So this argument is not persuasive. That's for ijab by such. So must be some qarina. Now it could be for permission, but this is not good to permission unless the previously was a prohibition under the ruling. So you do, I allow you to do. Like if the Qudra Salat when the Jum'ah prayer is finished, then spread on earth and follow your business. This because before the Salah they were ordered to come to Jum'ah. Now this order is lifted, is enough to have just spread on earth. Does not mean you must spread on earth. You may go home and sleep. Some scholars said no, it means you have to oblige. Some misunderstood this way. No, that's in that case we know it is for lifting a previous obligation. So it's for permissibility. You can't do that, you can't do anything else. But one example of that what was previously prevented is do some earning trade and so on, which had previously was discouraged or prohibited. The correct point is prohibited because of the hadith which show the order to attend Jum'ah and stop trading is for obligation. There are various evidences for that, but not just because Fadarul Bay' and go to Salah and Fadarul Bay' is by its wording alone showing obligation. No, there are many other evidences supporting that. So is lifting that no? That's how. So this is a long usuli discussion. If you go to Amidi, for example, discuss Sigat al-Amr, do or don't do. What is the original meaning of it? He said, we don't know. We have to have qarina. What I added to that, say, but if it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without any qarina, if there is anything like that, usually every command and every prohibition, many do and don't do in the Quran, comes with qarina. But if it doesn't come, then the only logical rationality is that Allah will not say do for permissibility, because definitely everything is the basic ruling is permissibility. So it can't be. And obligation needs a qarina to show that if you don't do it, I'm going to punish you. So it should be an advice for desirability. So if it comes in the divine and the messenger, wording and command is for desirability, without any qarina at all. But I doubt there's anything without qarina. You have to first that's no qarina. If you scan all the Quran and Sunnah, you find for every command qarina showing what is it. For the don't, similarly, from linguistic origin, but also for the first don't ever said to any human is لا ولا تقرب هذه الشجرة. Do not come close to this tree. It didn't come like that. Always فتكون من الظالمين. You will be then unjust, liable of punishment. So this is a prohibition. Haram, you will be punished. But it's clear if that linguistically clear that فلا تقرب هذه الشجرة is for prohibition and they will be punished, there was no need for this addition. But if there's a need there, and everywhere in the Quran, check. كل منها رغد حيث شئت ما that's a basic permissibility. Fine. Not obligation. Go around as you would like, nobody. You don't go naked, no problem. The only first command ولا تقرب هذه الشجرة فتكون من الظالمين. With the first command. Know where it comes without a clear specification of that you will be unjust, you will be wicked, you will be punishable. That's all what meaning by prohibition. That's the meaning of haram. That you should abstain from, but not just because it's desirable, because you will be liable of punishment. I say liable deliberately, because Allah is not obliged to meet the punishment. He can forego it, he can exercise it. Not for the case of reward. He is an obligation him to give the reward, unless the conditions of reward has been violated. So it's the doing of the slave. Anyway, we don't go to these fine points. So it needs a solid, and then exposing and detecting the circular arguments or the confusion by sir. Al-Amadi did a good piece there, but the only thing I think I have added to it, because his discussion is very clear, is that he did not say without absolute qarina, theoretically, it will be for desirability, the do, and the don't do for undesirable, for karahiyah. Because the nature of the one who gives the code that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger are doing in behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of that, not linguistically. Linguistically, without qarina, nothing can be done.
All right.
It's an lengthy discussion. I don't think you can adopt this, or if you go with the jumhur, the majority, but I think the majority point of view is faulty. Besides the premises of with no qarina, I doubt that there's any command in Quran and Sunnah comes without qarina. There must be qarina somewhere. People may have missed it. I don't see anything where you find something without a qarina, clarifying it. But I say the general qarina, that the command coming from Allah and his messenger is not coming from a human king or ruler who become angry and so on. No, it's coming from the absolute sovereign who created you in the first place. It did not exist before. So it will be for desirability. It's an advice. It's for your own good. And Allah will have nothing from that positive. So we say, if there's no qarina, assuming this ever existed, then it will be for desirability, the do, and the don't for undesirability. That's my argument. In short, it's very long. But that's the final conclusion of the people of Usul, culminating in Amidi. The others who argued otherwise brought arguments either circular or being fooled by that do is called Sighat al-Amr. Even it's called Sighat al-Amr. What does it mean? Amr means many things. Could be meaning desire, could be state of affair, could be many things. Even advice, Maw'idah, is also often mentioned as Amr. Like, for example, Durayd ibn Summa was with his brother, who was the commander of a raiding party, like the Arabs raid each other and take their horses. So he was a commander, so he make a decision. So he was advising Durayd because his experience. They wanted to rest at the end of the valley, thinking they are far away from the people. They stole their camels. And Durayd said, no, the people will not rest, they will pursue. We are not far away from our people. Just forsake a bit of rest and then continue until we close to home sufficient that the people will give up. They will not dare come in our domain. She said, no, we have full. So his brother insisted on taking a rest and spending the last part of the night instead of riding all through the night. And in the morning, the pursuing party attacked them and his brother was killed and the other was. So the right said, Amartukumu amri. According to these guys, I'm not what I commanded. No, he gave advice. He doesn't have commanding power. بمن عرج اللواء at the turn of the valley. فلم تستبينوا النصح. He did not recognize the sincerity of the advice. إلا ضحى الغد. Then he recognized it with the sword cutting you and killing you, including his brother. And he escaped with his life barely by pretending to be dead. So he used Amri, أمرتكم وأمري, and then say, but he did not recognize that it is a sincere advice. فلم تستبينوا النصح إلا ضحى الغد. This is the genuine Arabic language, man. So he used Amri for advice. And even the second part of the verse, the poetry verse, show clearly that this Amr was not a command, because he was not in command. The Amr was a pure advice, but out of sincerity. فلم تستبينوا النصح إلا ضحى الغد. Too late. Done. The pursuing party came and gave them a nice beating and took everything they stole. So there are many circular arguments there, but it has to be discussed much more than that I said now. This is very short introduction. Besides, I am doubting that there is anything without Qarina. There's no way there will be any command without Qarina. But theoretically, if there's no Qarina, then because it's a command from Allah and His Messenger, not from a king, not from a slave master who is needy and limited, from the absolute who needs nothing, could be only constructed in someone's mind, should be for desirability or undesirability. Obligation must be expressed by the threat of forsaking it. Don't do with a threat if you do it. Clearly, another qarina. The other one is just invitation to something for your own benefit, desirable, or something which is undesirable, advising against something undesirable. Yeah, that's the argument. Is structured, lengthy argument, but it has to be done much more structured than all their arguments for that. A command is prima facie is for obligation. A command form, do I mean? I'm also using the same linguistic error, etc. But I'm going to discuss plenty of them, but he did not refute some of their arguments cleanly. I have the refutation for all of them. All of them are either circular or misunderstanding the meaning of Amr in Arabic language and confusing it with Sighat al-Amr. That this do and don't do is called Sighat al-Amr is just a linguistic convention of the later scholars. That's not what the Quran comes with. They did not call that Sighat al-Amr. So if you detect such traps, many things clarified in Quran and Sunnah. Okay.
All right. One other question I had. This is probably a quick one.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you said one time that the mu'abiqat that destroy your all your good deeds.
Yeah, this is what the wedding of the Prophet ﷺ. سبع لا ينفعهن عمل إن كثر. Whatever your good deeds, they will not benefit you. They will be outclassed by these. And mentioning the shirk under them gives a clear that they are in the level of shirk. So the claim that anything outside shirk can be forgiven and does destroy the deeds is a claim based on the ayah. The people claim in Allah لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء. Interpreting dun as it dun can have two meanings in Arabic. That's admitted. Dun meaning something else, and this something lower. In that we have to interpret that in the light of the hadith of Prophet. So he does not forgive shirk, and anything in the same rank of shirk, but something lower than that in rank, he will forgive it, even if it's kabira. The hadith they rely on is that من شهد لا ربي مخلصا بقلبي لا بد أن ينتهي will ultimately end in paradise. So Abu Dhar asked, وإن زنى وإن سرق. He did not say one of these mubiqat. They are not in the mubiqat. وإن زنى وإن سرق. قال وإن زنى وإن سرق. Abu Dhar repeated again because he's like an ascator, going a little bit extreme thing. And then Abu Dhar responded to the third time, ورغم أنف أبي ذر. He said about himself, even against my nose. I wouldn't like it, but he's mentioning zina and sirqa. He did not mention joining the kuffar in the button. Maybe in his mind that's a level of shirk. Maybe he just, Allah did not allow him to pronounce something else. Yeah, in zina wa in sarq. No doubt. This will not undermine Islam and get you completely out of it. But the others, mubiqat, they may.
So there are only 7, or is it? Or there are more than 7?
There are more because the various hadith. I mentioned sometimes 3, sometimes 7, and so on. In another hadith, أكبر الكبائر, عشان commenting on the ayah, والذين لا يقتلون لا يدعون مع الله إلها آخر. هذه clear. So they don't supplicate to another deity or call another entity as a divine being beside Allah. ولا يقتلون النفس التي حرم الله. ولا يزنون. Now his zina is mentioned. الحديث كان أكبر الكبائر 3, and he mentioned that after that. What's أكبر الكبائر? الإشراك بالله. No need for qualification. But in the case of قتل, which is the level of shirk, he clarified more. وأن تقتل ولدك خشية أن يطعم معك. That you kill your son because you fear he will be eating away your resources. Just to protect money from being, because essentially this is the worst type of قتل. And then وأن تزاني بحليلة جارك, that you commit adultery with the wife of your neighbor. It's not any commit the wife of neighbor, please. And he's أكبر الكبائر 3. And then he read the ayah, meaning that in the matter of zina and qatl, it is a certain higher level over them. The other ones does not mean they're out of that, but at least that is clarification. And here is the ayah.
Has anyone compiled like an exhaustive list or book on?
You can connect the base hadith and put. I think they end by like 14, 15, something like that. But you have to check that isnad is valid and so on. But that's hypothetical. He mentioned 3 items, 7 items maximum. He ever mentioned 10. I think one hadith said. He said 10, I will tell you that. And then he said he just was happy to mention 3 or 7. Did not get to the 10. Because people cannot memorize so much at once. Various reasons for that. But if you another hadith, you find some of them joined in all hadith and some extra here, some extra here, some extra here.
All right.
Yeah, okay. But nobody should take that alliances that, I'll be standing for the Islam. Don't get in this satanic trap. Because you never know when you get to a level of istihlal and so on, and you are kafir out of Islam by creed already. Finished. Game over also. For anyone's sin. Established as a sin, even if it's a minor sin. It doesn't help if you suddenly come to the conclusion, this is halal, just take it easy, That may get you out of Islam, then you get a red card then. So nobody should take that as a license to do them and get away.
Okay, far away, bruv. Next question.
Yeah, Sheikh, Assalamu alaikum, it's me again.
Oh,
So, Sheikh, I just have I want your opinion. Can we say that Islamic history is like the most well-preserved history in the human history?
More or less, yes, because the recordation is very extensive and so on, but there's no divine protection for history, so you cannot say Allah has guaranteed that history will be preserved and the relation of them. There could be
yes, of course. I'm talking like academically, Sheikh.
No doubt about that. There were well records and also the isnad method and so on, despite all the faults which were committed by scholars in applying it. All of that give you really later on, like in the time of recordation, like let's say late 2nd century, people were recording events immediately as they happen. So there's eyewitnesses directly. From that on, is everything is recorded and the biography of people are kept and so on continuously until a current time. So in that sense, it's very, very well. Look at European history, almost let's say from 500-600 roughly until maybe 1550, something like that. The only records we have is that the marriage books of the priests and the death records, and that was kept relatively. We don't know very much about that. And some campaigns of kings and the royal palace recorder, which usually most likely cannot be trusted 100%, recording some events. We don't know that much, really. In Islamic history, we know much more in that sense. But the Chinese may have a very recorded history because they have writing much more ancient and keep a record and to synchronize things with moon visibility, with even comets and so on. So this is also accurate. More or less.
Sheikh, is this science of isnad, is it like something like unique to let's say Islamic civilization?
Oh, it seemed to
Because-
be. The Mustashriqeen admitted that it's unique Islam celebration, and one of them said, "Should the Muslim be proud about that?" Yes, because nobody has that in that way. They are trying now by considering the New Testament to apply to the New Testament by starting with what we have in hand now and going back step by step, record by record, book by book, parchment by parchment until they get. And no way they can go earlier than the year 200 after Christ. No way, except a little bit of speculation and so on. You cannot trust anything before that. There's no connected isnads, nothing you can trust there. So all the claim that is by eyewitness has been refuted. There's no evidence, and there clear evidence in the text themselves that they are later written and they contain contradiction. So Islam, in that sense, even if they apply this isnad method, they cannot go convincingly before the year 200. But with the isnad method, the Muslim, you can go up to the time of the Prophet, and in many issues, you can confidently establish them with certitude, tons of issues with good high probability. And you can establish quite many of things which people think are established. You can show by cross-referencing, which has been neglected by some classical scholars, indeed, that they are fabrication. They never existed. For example, one of them, the examples, because the scholars violated the principle that fits their desire, is the adventures of space conquest, I call it. Just a joke. The adventure of Abdullah bin Saba, running from against Medina, collecting, leading campaigns toward Medina, attacking Uthman and so on. Never happened. Never happened. There may be a man called Abdullah bin Saba living somewhere in Kufa, which was banned by Ali ibn Abi Talib towards Madain. That's the maximum about Abdullah bin Saba. Maybe a named man like that or some deviant views. But leading campaigns, hundreds of thousands of people are fooled by him and taken to against Uthman. Uthman is the pure and holy one. This is a Umayyad fabrication. Actually, it's more a late fabrication of Saif ibn Umar al-Dabbi. Things like that. But again, by isnad and by cross-referencing other narration, it shows that has never existed. Things like that. But they fool only people say, this is great. MashaAllah. We have now an evidence that is only what this goddamn Jew is doing all of that. All the Sahaba was in complete harmony with Uthman. Uthman did nothing wrong. He's holy almost. Telling Uthman in a holy cow. But a real narration, some of them with the isnads of the level of Bukhari and Muslim, showed a completely different picture. Just read Al-Hurriya and Tufan about accountability and counting Uthman. Completely different than Abdullah bin Saba there.
But Sheikh, this is like kind of concerning for because if early Muslims could change history, we can just imagine what happened.
Who said early Muslim did that? Who said that? That's only the narration. Saif ibn Umar al-Dabbi, who died 180 Hijri.
What I mean, Sheikh, is that there are some hadith that we know were modified. So what can we say about the rest of history?
There's very reasons. Some of them, some of the hadith are so-called companions fabricated it, like Muawiyah, and soon we'll have the publication which she announced. We have the evidence, that forensic analysis. So there are some munafiq and kafir there, but we can expose them, and we expose them. Yeah, that's there. And other, because people narrating are gullible and accepted from someone who sneaked some hadith on them. And some misunderstood the meaning and reported by meaning, not word by word, letter by letter, with the result that you get something after another narration, it becomes mutilated and give you the opposite meaning. That's all happened. All of these has been studied in history and studied by textual analysis. There's no problem. Because human beings are reporting. So what do you mean you can trust? What do you mean that?
What I mean, Sheikh, is that
what you want, what you wish is that you open the book of Bukhari and believe this is
no. That's not what I'm talking about, Sheikh.
That does not undermine history.
No, Sheikh, what I meant is that thanks to the size of isnad and multiple narrations and
it's true. That's what
we can we can distinguish like some,
Yeah, but,
you know,
but why I'm saying take Abdullah ibn Salam, because this is the Ahl Sunnah adopting so they can sleep in peace. Uthman was holy and so on. That's it. So
yeah,
by
Sheikh, but forget about
my brother,
Muslims,
no, they
Yeah.
developed a creed that the Sahaba are holy cows, and they want to stick to it. And this come for them. So they call Saif ibn Umar al-Dabbi al-Tamimi, they call him weak in hadith, but he is an authority in Tariq. Why authority in Tariq? Because of this one. That's Sami. This is the failing. This is the failing. Should not have been like that. That's it. I'm criticizing one point, but
what I meant, Sheikh, is that like past history, like it could be like all false if we think about it. Since we're
which
like,
one? Give me a specific story. You cannot.
you know, Chinese history, Roman history, Greek history, like
No, it can't be all of it.
like
No, that's a mistake again of so-called hypercritical school. It can't be all of it. There may be single events.
Yes, I don't mean all of it, but you know, like a lot of it, let's say, because
even not a lot of it. We know the name of emperors. We know their times. We know their mischief. We know plenty of things out there written by their friends and their enemies, and it's recorded.
Yes,
because the Romans are a writing nation, so we can't see this skeleton of history. We know. So it's not true what the hypercritical school club will not believe anything until you find an inscription on a rock or a grave with a grave mark with that. That's not narration by itself, and books and so on are good authority, provided you read them with open eyes. Is this man a man of the palace, writing for the palace? Then we have to be alert. Or is the man writing from hearsay? That's just how history is done. But Islamic history is better recorded. The early phase where the people were mostly illiterate generally, that first century, is mostly on narration, little on written things. But plenty of written things are there, by the way. Even from the time of the Prophet was available. The Quran is from that of Prophet written. Certainly. We can certain it by carbon dating and so on. So we have the spinal cord, what we need for the deen. What we do not for the need something is associate, and we can refute it and work with it. But that's what all what's needed is just to get out of the trying to make history, because some Sahabi are built to make it holy, a holy cow. No, it's a history of human being. They can fail, they can make mistakes. And the moment you put that, everything will be right, and then you work objectively. That did not happen in the issue of Uthman, for example. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm complaining. But it's easy to expose. Before you open your eyes, it's plenty of narration. Let me give you the following story. One cousin of Ahmed bin Hanbal, his father said Ishaq bin Hanbal bin Ishaq or something. Ask Ahmed bin Hanbal, let me hear that so and so and Shuyukh was specialist in the stories of Safin. And he said, I'll go and write them. Say, why do you write them? Ahmed bin Hanbal. Now the Hanbali will get excited, angry. Why are you going to write them? Say, there's no halal and haram them. Say, but you wrote them. Say, I wrote just from this man, only part of the matan and the isnad to check which one are coming from Shu'bah, because Shu'bah is a mountain, nobody can attack Shu'bah. Shu'bah bin Hajjaj ibn al-Ward. That's the Friday. I think the best Imam at his time, much superior to Malik, despite all the idiots are claiming otherwise. Anyway, and you have listened to him. He insisted and went and got the book of this man, everything fully as it should be, like anyone who is seeking the truth. Do you think sorry in the day? Ahmed Hanbal came to know that he came back with the book of his sheikh. So what he does? He contacts the father of the guy, say, I heard your son went to Sudan and wrote a complete book. Catch the book for him, burn it or hide it away. That's Ahmed bin Hanbal. I don't want to add anymore. Just leave it for your imagination. So if you have this kind of scholars, who are imam and so on, they will, the one who is supposed to be the guardian of narration of haram and haram and also on history, avoiding history because, why? Because it ends condemning their idol, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. We know now the trick. So in that case, there will be some problems, yes, but we can expose them. There's enough narration preserved against the nose of Ahmed bin Hanbal and everybody else, which will bring the reality forward. So for his bad luck, Plenty of it is in the books of hadith. So there's no way to run away from it. Absolutely no way to run away from it. Bias. Anyway, I don't want to go there. There's a sorry story about Ahmed al-Hanbal and also mischief done by some of his students. They don't know anything about the first century and then issues about who heard from whom and who was living at the time of whom, because they are ignorant about the first century. Why they're ignorant? Because they avoid the people of Akhbar. We don't trust them. Why don't trust them? Did you analyze them correctly and make cross? No. They are unreliable. They are biased there. Just arbitrary. You will face that when you study that area. So you have to do some hard work there against the scholars. Ahmed bin Hanbal, Malik also.
Okay, let's
unfortunately. So we have to be critical to our own history also. But definitely the science of Isnad in this way is unique to the Ummah essentially. The Chinese relies on Kitab and contemporary writing and so on, but most writers will be Kohens and so on with the palace. So there's question mark, but also they're recording stars and things like that and writing it in books. Their books, I think their paper is good, can live long time. In India, unfortunately, the way of writing was in these wide leaves of some trees, and these will never survive a few hundred years. So we don't have original sheets, and they don't have paper, and they don't use animal parchment. They were writing on these wide leaves of, I think, was it banana or something? You can make almost like a page out of it, cut it. This will not live. With the best protection, it may live 300 years. So when the English came, they collected whatever a few hundred years available. Before that was nothing, except oral stories which are full of myths. You know, with certainty they are full of myths and legends. You can barely find any. You find maybe fossils of point here they're indicating something in the past, like hinting to the Aryan invasion and where the classification, the peoples of into caste, and especially the low caste being that's the original people of India before the Aryan come, declared to be impure and created from the foot of some satanic god and things like that. That's all what's remaining from the history of the conquest and at the time.
Okay, one last person, then we can go to press and update. So last, Wala, you can mute.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
So,
Sheikh, many years ago, I think about 2 years ago, you told a story which is very, very moving about a man whose son was killed by his brother's son, and he forgave him. And I wondered how can I find this story, because it was.
Give me more. What is the story?
Well, the story
is that a Sahabi or from the Arab before Islam?
Yeah, it is. I think it was the Arab before Islam, but it was very, very moving. And you discussed it in the matter of how somebody holds their temper.
The story is Qais ibn Asim, mention of his virtues as a man in Jahiliyyah, known for hilm. And that's what made him really become a leader of his own people and tip the balance in his favor.
Yeah.
And because there was dispute between Abu Bakr and Umar about who should be regarded as the leader of Bani Tamim, Qais ibn Asim al-Minqari, or the other one, Al-Aqra' ibn Habis al-Hanzali. And we don't know what's settled. And the Rasul rebuked them for the dispute with loud voice. The Quran rebuked them. That's the story of rebucation. That's المهم, from what we mentioned about Qais ibn Asim, another independent hadith is that he said, هذا سيد الوبر. This is the Lord or the Master or the most distinguished man of the Wabar. Wabar is the opposite of Madar. Madar is the cities and villages where they're made of stones. And the Wabar is the people living in tents made out of the Wabar of camels mainly. That's the way we say the Wabar, meaning of the Bedouins of Najd. So this seems to be the one reason. And they mentioned the virtues of Qais ibn Asim in one of it, who became a good Muslim, never was involved in Ridda and so on. I don't know if Al-Habs was involved or not, but it doesn't have the virtues of that. One of the stories is that he was sitting where the usual sits, the way sitting of a leader. They call it Habwa, something like lifting the legs and putting or binding them to some reserved for the arrogant leaders and so on. And someone came to him with his cousin, with his nephew, and say, "Do you know what he's done now?" Say, "Why you can bring him in shakal?" Say, "He attacked your son, so on, and killed him." And he said, the narrator say, "Wallahi ma halla habatu." They don't even change his position of sitting and turn to his nephew. "What a miserable deed did you do? You attacked your own kin, the one who will support you in war, instead of supporting him. Leave him go." And say, look to the son who was killed. Say his mother is foreign, is ghariba, from another tribe. Go and give her 100 camel as a diya from the money of Qasma. So he said, nobody knows such a kind of helm and self-control like Qais ibn Asim. And after his orders, he returned back to the people around him in the tribal chieftain gathering and continue his discussion.
Yeah. So
I don't know where it is, the story, but in some Arab literature, but I remember it somewhere.
I mean, I was really moved by the helm and the self-control.
Yeah. There will be people like that everywhere in the world, even in Jahiliyyah.
Yeah, but that is completely. It's like 1 in 10,000 people have that.
Yeah, fine. I agree with you. But what is the need for me to find the reference now and so on?
Okay.
It's a nice story. You can check the Arabic stories. If you learn how to use ChatGPT, you may ask ChatGPT, there's a story that Qais ibn Asim forgave his nephew for this and so on. Give him the headlines, where to find which books are depicting that. He will bring you the books.
Qais ibn Asim.
Qais ibn Asim al-Minqari. Qais ibn Asim.
Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah.
Okay. It's a nice story, Allah Alam, but it seems to be well established and very spread in Arabic, making him really. And the Messenger commented on him, not for this story, generally, Sayyid al-Wabar, the master of the Lord of the camel hair, meaning the one dwelling in tents made of camel hair. That's the meaning of Sayyid al-Wabar. The whole type of living is called Wabar, Sayyid al-Wabar. And the opposite of Wabar, al-Madar, the rocks. Yeah, there's a convention, Arabic convention, well established. فهذا سيد الوضر, and even took his abaya and put it for him to sit on it. It's very great honoration. And this man turned out to be really worthy of that. Yeah. Okay, so that's very moving, really. Very moving. خير إن شاء الله. But use ChatGPT to mention the summary of the story. He will go and search for a similar story and bring you in the book, so in Aghani, in this and this. He will bring you the story. And possibly with Isnad, because the people of Akhbar and Sha'al did use Isnad also, which is good, which shows where the Isnad ends. But it ends usually that they got it from the Arabs of their time and so on, which got that most likely narrated, sometimes by Tawatur, sometimes by invention, nobody knows. But it gives you some look in history. Yalla, I think we should. What's the time now? Arash? I think Arash went to.
Yeah, my phone's my computer's got a bit funny. So let's go into Palestine update. Give me a few seconds. I'm going to stop the stream in a minute, but give me a few seconds, inshallah. It just suddenly happened. I'm not sure what's happened. I haven't got anything running.
You can reboot and connect again, no problem.
Not going to be possible, Doc, because I'm recording locally, aren't I?
Okay.
So just give me literally a few seconds, inshallah. I'll sort something out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few more seconds.
I'll take it with that, no problem. We're fine with time and everything. أسهل لك يا رب العالمين.